Chapter 3057. Milieu to our realm. Entrance. The first marshal isn't here. What a joke. It can't be, Caller. You didn't even say anything when the first marshal left? The other 7 Hongmeng marshals were extremely dissatisfied. They were guarding the 4 small entrances and didn't know that the first marshal had left. They only knew that the first marshal had entered the Milieu wilderness not long ago when the insectoids attacked again. Everyone, calm down. I have already reported the situation to the first marshal. The marshal is rushing over. Marshal Hongmeng calmly said, "This matter will be decided by the marshal himself. If you have any questions, you can ask him personally when he returns." The Hongmeng marshals didn't say anything. It was the first marshal's fault that he didn't give them an explanation. However, it was a little too much for them to question the first marshal's decision. Also, I have already informed the second marshal. The marshal is rushing over. During this period of time, please guard the entrance. Marshal Hongmeng had a serious expression. Okay, we will do our best. We will not let the insectoids take a single step in. The Hongmeng marshal's morale was high. Although they were on the defensive side, they still had the upper hand in the battle against the insectoids. The insectoids' repeated attacks didn't have any effect. This unknowingly increased the morale of the Taichu army. When 2 armies fought, morale was very important. Black Python. Marshal Hongmeng spoke. Here. Black Python Hongmeng replied. You will guard the main entrance with me. The entrance of Milieu to our realm had 1 main entrance and 4 smaller entrances. Originally, the 8 Hongmeng marshals were divided into 2 groups, each guarding a small entrance. The first marshal guarded the main entrance. Now that the first marshal wasn't here, guarding the main entrance became the most important. The pressure from the insectoids was the greatest here. Okay, Black Python Hongmeng replied straightforwardly. Before the reinforcements arrive, everyone must hold on. The Taichu will depend on everyone. Marshal Caller Hongmeng said earnestly. His expression was solemn, and the hundreds of antennae on his forehead fluttered. He still hid some information, but if he revealed it now, it would only disturb the morale of the army. Everything was unknown. Furthermore, Marshal Caller Hongmeng was still worried. Now that the first Grand Marshal was not around, the spies in the army would be even more unscrupulous. The implications of this battle were too great. If what the Marshal said is true, and this is a trap set up by the insectoids, Marshal Hongmeng Caller let out a long sigh, and his 100 antennae drooped down slightly. This time, the Taichu will probably be doomed. A new round of war broke out. The insectoids have been resting for more than 10 years. This time, the outbreak was rather fierce. Just as Lin Feng had guessed, the insectoids had clearly come prepared this time, and there was a sense of conspiracy everywhere. The first Grand Marshal's whereabouts were hidden, and only Marshal Caller Hongmeng knew about it. However, this didn't mean that Marshal Caller Hongmeng was a spy from the insectoids. If the spy is a general of the Taichu, it will be hard for him to know about the first Grand Marshal's whereabouts. However, if the spy is one of the 8 Great Marshals of Hongmeng, he will definitely be able to find out about the first Grand Marshal's departure. Furthermore, even if there isn't a spy, this trap set up by the commander of the insectoids could be estimated. The insectoids are spread throughout the entire Milieu to our realm. The first Grand Marshal can't avoid all of them. As long as he sees one, the commander of the insectoids will know. Especially after entering the Milieu wilderness, the first Grand Marshal will have nowhere to hide. Lin Feng and Shi Wanli were rushing towards the entrance of the Milieu to our realm. Although they might not make it in time, Lin Feng believed that they weren't in a desperate situation yet. The insectoids were also fighting with their backs against the wall. If they could turn the situation around, the Taichu could do the same. Big brother, do you think the insectoids will succeed this time? Shi Wanli asked. They already have the upper hand. Lin Feng was very calm. The army doesn't have a leader. The Taichu factions only want to protect themselves. There aren't many who are willing to contribute to the Taichu. If there are a few more powerhouses like the first Grand Marshal, the insectoids won't be a threat anymore. If I were the commander of the insectoids, I would definitely send out all my elites and attack all 5 routes. At the same time, I would find the weakest route. With the commander of the insectoids personally leading, I would send more troops to take it down. It sounds like the army is in danger, Sherwanli said worriedly. Will the first Grand Marshal be able to make it in time? He won't be able to. Lin Feng said, the commander of the insectoids set up this trap. How can the first Grand Marshal be able to make it in time? The only chance now is to inform the army or the powerhouses of the other factions to resist this situation. In the secret realm, they couldn't use teleportation because the environment was different from the world. However, they could teleport in the Hongmeng Sea. As long as a powerhouse was willing to help, even if it was just for a short while, the insectoids might be able to retreat. The prerequisite was that this powerhouse couldn't be weaker than the first Grand Marshal. Milieu Tuo Realm, entrance. Boom, boom, boom. Large battles erupted in all 5 routes. As the entrance of the main route, it received the greatest impact from the insectoids. Many big yin insects appeared and fought with Kalar and the black python at close range. These big yin insects were quite strong. They weren't something the Taichu generals could fight against. The pressure on the other 4 routes was far less than the main route. The main route was wide enough and easy to attack, but hard to defend. Just as Lin Feng predicted, the insectoids didn't choose one route, but all 5. As long as they could take down one route, the insectoids would have an overwhelming advantage. Hold on, Black Python. Hongmeng Marshal Kalar was dealing with 2 big yin insects at the same time. The Hongmeng army, under the leadership of the Taichu generals, defended against the universe-devouring Insect King and universe-splitting Insect King. On the other side, the pressure on the Grand Mist Marshal only increased. Similarly, there were 2 great yin insects. One of them waved its arm like a battle blade, creating a sharp sound as it sliced through the air. The other great yin insect used an illusion technique to greatly affect the Grand Mist Marshal. I know, Black Python Hongmeng's words were concise. He knew how important he was. The first Grand Marshal wasn't here, so the 8 Hongmeng Marshals couldn't make any mistakes. Even if he died, he had to hold on. Boom, boom, boom. The battle became more and more intense. The insectoid commander still hadn't appeared. The pressure on the main route continued to increase. Even without the insectoid commander, the route was on the verge of collapsing. At this moment, the first Grand Marshal was still far away. However, there was more than one marshal in the army. Crack! A huge net instantly appeared at the entrance. Purple electrical energy filled the net. A large amount of Hongmeng's energy gathered and repaired the defense that was on the verge of collapse. Hongmeng Marshal Kalar and Black Python Hongmeng's eyes instantly lit up. They had finally received reinforcements. Second Grand Marshal. Marshal Hongmeng Kalar revealed a weak smile. Chapter 3058. Blade shatters the Milky Way. Mayday, leave, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 3059. There were 2 Pinnacle Universe Masters in the army. One was the first Marshal, and the other was the second Marshal. In terms of power, the first Marshal was naturally stronger, and he was firmly in second place. However, the second Marshal was only slightly weaker than the first Marshal. His power wasn't inferior in any way. Horan? Wenw? Aina? Come. Elun? That useless fellow. In the end, he still has to rely on me. The second Marshal appeared in his purple robe. Lightning flashed his hands. He instantly repaired the defense that was already on the verge of collapse. Thunder God. The second Marshal's attacks were ferocious and swift. He controlled the level 7 primordial laws. The God of Thunder appeared in the void once more. A lightning hammer filled with violent electricity smashed down. Countless insectoids were killed by the lightning. Hong, Hong, Hong. The arrival of the second Grand Marshal not only stabilized the defense of the main passageway, but also greatly reduced the pressure on Marshal Kalar and Marshal Black Python. 2 of the great yin insects flew towards the second Grand Marshal, making ear-piercing noises. Idiot! The second Marshal was naturally disdainful. Why would he care about these bugs? If Lin Feng could easily kill the big yin worm, so could the second marshal. If the first marshal was willing to put down his pride and beg him for help, the second marshal would have come to help him a long time ago. It wasn't that he didn't have a righteous heart. It was just that he had been competing with the first marshal for the position for many years. No one was willing to give in to the other. The second marshal wasn't a petty person. This time, the moment the first marshal asked, he immediately came. That was why he was able to arrive in such a short time and maintain the defense of the main tunnel. In the army, you could compete and compete. However, this matter concerned the Taichu. The bigger picture was more important. Xiao, a beam of light pierced through me Luo Tua territory. The first marshal was moving at full speed. He knew how serious the situation was, so he would rather lower his head and contact the second marshal. The moment me Luo Tua territory was lost, the consequences would be unimaginable. Luckily, Pang Yu, the second marshal, made it in time. The first marshal had already received news from Hongming, Kalar. Although the battle was still very intense, the second marshal's arrival had alleviated the imminent danger and allowed the army to regain their footing. Even so, the serious expression on the first marshal's face didn't disappear. After talking to Lin Feng for a long time, especially after he calmed down, the first marshal felt even more anxious and uneasy. He knew very well that the insectoids were serious this time. The insectoid Grand Commander's actions and preparations were all for this war. Originally, the insectoids could have slowly dismantled the army's defenses, but who would have thought that a freak like Lin Feng would appear and silently dismantle the insectoid's core forces? The big yin insect had suffered huge losses, and the insectoid commander had no choice but to launch an attack. The insect race, which had been cultivating for more than 10 eras, had accumulated enough power. Moreover, they had even gathered the great yin insects for this attack. From Hongming's message, the first Grand Marshal could clearly feel the determination of the insectoids. This time, they were serious. This is the key. If we can block this wave of attacks, we will definitely have the upper hand. The loss of the great yin insects is huge, and the Great Yin Insect Commander's Great Yin Insect Black has been exposed. Although the Miluo Tuo realm is huge, it is very difficult to completely exterminate the insect race. It may take 1,000,000 eras, but with the help of the Yao Tuo clan, the insect race has nowhere to hide. Success or failure would depend on this battle. The first marshal knew very well that he could see the importance of this battle, and so could the Great Yin Insect. Because of this, the Great Yin Insect didn't hesitate to expose the location of the Great Yin Insect and lured it into the Miluo wilderness, creating a weakness in the defense of the entrance. If he didn't guess wrongly, the Great Yin Insect was definitely in the midst of the attack. If I was the Great Yin Insect, I wouldn't attack the main tunnel. I would definitely attack one of the 4 smaller tunnels. The first marshal knew what to do, but the army was currently under the control of the second marshal, so all the decisions were made by the second marshal. He could give suggestions, but he couldn't control and interfere with the second marshal. That was because his position was the same as the second marshal's. I hope, Pang, you can hold on, the first marshal thought to himself. He didn't care if the second marshal took his credit or his own safety. He just hoped that the situation wouldn't become irreversible because of his mistake. If the entrance to Miluo to a realm was destroyed, the Taichu insect disaster would erupt. He wouldn't be able to absolve himself from the blame, even if he died. The entrance to Miluo to a realm was facing an unprecedented attack from the insect race. The Great Yin Insect, which had never appeared before, also joined the attack, catching the army off guard. With a large number of universe-devouring insect emperors and universe-splitting insect kings as the main force, the insect race's attacks became stronger and stronger. Not only did they have an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, but they also didn't lose to the army in terms of quality. The first marshal wasn't here. Although the second marshal had taken over, he couldn't arrange everything as well as the first marshal in such a short time. Also, the insect race's attack this time was much stronger than before. There was too little time left for the second marshal. The army's estimation of the insect race's strength was completely wrong. With the strength of the insect race's past attacks, they naturally wouldn't be able to hold on. Luckily, the Hongmeng army had a strong enough foundation. There were many Taichu generals and Hongmeng marshals defending. These were all Universe Dominator level beings, including many of the generals who had Universe Dominator level abilities. In terms of individual combat ability, the army was still rather outstanding. The Hongmeng marshal had used all of his trump cards, and the 4 small passageways couldn't hold many soldiers. Although the situation wasn't very optimistic, the army was still able to hold on. However, the Bug Race's commander had yet to appear, causing the Grand Mist marshals to be unable to put down their worries. No one knew which tunnel the insectoid Grand Commander would appear in. Would it be the 3rd and 4th pathways guarded by only one Hongmeng marshal, or the 1st and 2nd pathways guarded by 2 Hongmeng marshals? Waiting for a chance. The 2nd marshal was extremely arrogant. As he guarded the main pathway, he commanded the entire situation. The Bug Race commander will appear in the 3rd and 4th pathways. As long as the defenses of any of the pathways are relaxed, the Bug Race commander won't let go of this chance. Why don't Black Python and I go to the 3rd and 4th pathways? Marshal Hongmeng Kaler asked. No need. The 2nd marshal's eyes sparkled. A proud smile appeared on his face. Don't you think that if the Bug Race commander appears in 2 small pathways, the defenses will be easier? But this isn't it a little risky? Marshal Hongmeng Kaler hesitated. Were you afraid of? The 2nd marshal snorted. As long as the Bug Race commander appears, I will kill him to prevent future troubles. This insect plague will be completely ended by me, paying you. Iluan, he is still too inexperienced. Chapter 3060. At the entrance of Miluo Tor Realm, the battle was in full swing. The army and the insectoids were in a stalemate. The Taichu Dominator elites, the 1st Marshal, Lin Feng, and the other experts who had rushed over from the Miluo wilderness were also doing their best. After Lin Feng gave his instructions, Mushan immediately informed the other 11 groups of Dominator elites to head to the entrance of Miluo Tuor Realm. He and Baluo Barun were also participating in the battle. Mushan still felt a little guilty. The decision was made by the 1st Marshal, but he also had a lot of responsibility. The fastest was naturally the 1st Marshal, but Lin Feng was not slow either. Sherwan Li's innate ability was quite strong. Homing's power was enough to resist the pressure of Miluo Tuor Realm. His flying speed was only slightly slower than the 1st Marshal's. Big Brother, has the insectoid commander appeared? Sherwan Li was also paying attention to the direction of the battle. Not yet. Lin Feng had been in contact with the 1st Marshal and knew the direction of the battle. Although it was very likely that he and the 1st Marshal would not be able to make it in time for this battle, they could not come to a conclusion so quickly. The army's foundation was still there. Now that the 2nd Marshal had arrived, the insectoid commander might not succeed. If he had absolute confidence, he would have appeared long ago. I hope the army can hold on. Sherwan Li also did not want the Taichu to fall. No matter what, he had lived in the Taichu for a long time and had some feelings for it. There will be no problem. Lin Feng comforted him. Although he said that, Lin Feng did not have any confidence. This time, the insectoids came out in full force. The insectoid commander was clearly serious. How could it end so easily? Although it was raining heavily now, the real thunderstorm had yet to arrive. Once it erupted, it would be hard to predict. Miluo Tuo Realm, entrance, main passage, 2nd Marshal, Marshal Kaler Hongmeng, Marshal Black Python Hongmeng. 1st passage, Marshal Mosai Hongmeng, Marshal Wali Hongmeng. In the 2nd passage, Marshal Huai Hongmeng and Marshal Udi Li Otter Hongmeng. The 3rd passage, Tadamo Hongmeng. The 4th passage, Marshal Beimeng Anji. Among them, Marshal Kaler Hongmeng and Marshal Black Python Hongmeng were transferred from the 3rd and 4th channels. Marshal Beimeng Anji was the strongest of the 8 Hongmeng marshals. He had no problem guarding the 4th passage alone. As for Marshal Hongmeng, he was not as strong as Marshal Beimeng Anji. After Black Python Hongmeng was transferred away, the pressure on the 3rd passageway was the greatest out of the 4 passageways. Even the arrival of the 2nd Marshal didn't alleviate the pressure. Damn it, Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng was covered in injuries. The pincer attack of the 3 Taichu bugs made it hard for him to defend. Even though he had several generals under him, the bug army was too huge. The Hongmeng army's numbers were far from enough. What is the second marshal doing? Hurry up and release the Black Python. Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng had sent out reinforcements long ago. However, he still hadn't received any help from the main passageway. Hong, Hong, Hong. Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng tried his best. However, it was a pity that he was outnumbered. The situation didn't improve at all. This time, the bug army had caught the army off guard. Especially with the appearance of the great yin bugs, it was extremely important. Every single one of them was at least as strong as a pinnacle universe ruler. They could only fight. Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng had no way out. The moment the 3rd passageway was breached by the bug army, he would become the Taichu's eternal sinner. This responsibility was something Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng couldn't bear. Even if I die, I won't let you bugs take a single step forward. Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng's eyes were bloodshot. He crazily attacked and stubbornly defended. At that moment, the 3 bugs couldn't do anything to him. One man against the pass. Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng overdrew his body's energy and used his willpower to hold on. At that moment, a terrifying evil energy suddenly descended. Without a sound, it caused Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng's mind to go blank. He fell into endless darkness. Behind the bug army in the 3rd passageway, an incredibly huge great yin bug suddenly appeared. It was high above. There was a huge golden sarcoma on its head. Its 12 blade-like arms were twice as thick as a normal great yin bug. A terrifying killing intent emanated from it. Its eyes were filled with intelligence. Its entire body was covered in golden veins. It seemed to be more noble than the silver veins of normal great yin bugs. Its bloodline was purer. Ayo! Its long golden tail was raised up high. It was like an emperor giving an order. At that moment, the 3 bugs surrounding Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng seemed to have found their backbone. Their strength increased and crazily tore apart Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng's defenses. The sudden explosion caused Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng to lose his defense. His internal universe was devoured. Marshal! Lord Marshal! Brother Tadamo! No! All the Taichu generals and commanders were shocked. Tadamu and the primordial chaos great general were instantly killed by the arrival of this enormous insect. The momentum of the primordial chaos army collapsed like an avalanche. Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng was the core of the Hongmeng army in the 3rd passageway. The experts in the army knew very well what his death meant. The 3rd passageway was about to be lost. The balance of the war between the army and the Zergs finally tilted. After losing their first marshal, the army's formation and defense had a flaw. The Zergs took advantage of it. Under the command of this new emperor-like great yin bug, they directly broke through the army's defenses. It's the Zerg commander. Damn it. The Zerg commander has appeared. Everyone fight. We can't let them succeed. Hold on for a while longer. Reinforcements will be here soon. Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng had fallen, but the Hongmeng army did not give up. The Taichu generals and powerful beings, no matter how weak they were, fought with all their might to buy time and opportunities. Chi! The insect race commander was cold and merciless. His 12 blade-like arms could kill almighties as easily as chopping vegetables and meat. His greenish-white eyes were filled with ambition. Wherever he looked, there would be illusions. He alone could wreak havoc on the entire Hongmeng army. 3 great yin bugs led the charge towards the most heavily guarded entrance. After losing Marshal Tadamo Hongmeng, the remaining shrimp soldiers couldn't stop the Zergs at all. Once they broke through the entrance, the Zerg army would be able to enter the Taichu territory. At that moment, sizzle, 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 a purple lightning net instantly appeared in the originally weak space. It was filled with a huge amount of energy. With a loud boom, the image of the thunder god descended. It was extremely majestic. A pair of thunder hammers smashed down and smashed 2 great yin bugs into pieces. Hua! The second marshal was like a god descending from the heavens. He stood proudly in the air and looked at the insectoid commander with disdain. He smiled coldly. I've been waiting for you for a long time, Insectoid Commander. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 3061. The two marshals in the army, Iluan and Peng Yu, were both pinnacle universe dominators. In terms of power, there wasn't much of a difference. Although the second marshal was slightly weaker, the difference wasn't by much. However, the two had different styles of doing things. Iluan was meticulous in his actions, and he had the aura of a general. Peng Yu acted on his own and was too arrogant. His way of leading the army was even more unconventional. Hence, the army god valued Iluan and made him the first marshal. Although Peng Yu wasn't satisfied, he had no choice but to be second. This time, he finally got the chance. Peng Yu wanted to prove to the army god that he wasn't just the second marshal. He had the right to be the first marshal. Go a dot. Peng Yu unleashed the perfect level 7 Hongmeng Law, Thunder God. Lightning covered the entire area and went straight for the bug commander. He didn't care about the illusion at all. The title of the second marshal wasn't for nothing. In terms of willpower, how could he be trapped by an illusion? He, Peng Yu, was the third in command in the army. Ja, ja, ja. The bug commander rose from the ground. His huge body didn't slow down at all. His attack speed was frighteningly fast. No matter how much lightning hit him, he was still as steady as a rock. His defense was indestructible. The 12 blade arms contained terrifying energy. It was completely different from the energy of the second marshal. When they clashed, mountains and rocks crumbled. Under the lead of the bug commander, the morale of the bug army was high. Many big yin bugs crazily attacked the third channel's defense. With only the second marshal alone, it seemed like he couldn't protect everything. You underestimate the Taichu. The second marshal smiled confidently. Very quickly, 2 top-notch masters appeared behind the purple lightning net. One of them was wearing green armor and looked extremely ferocious. His terrifying strength wasn't any weaker than the second marshal's. The other one had a white, transparent body that was faintly discernible. Her bright eyes were like the sun. The moment she appeared, the illusion around her instantly disappeared. Methane and Baili Z. Within the army, there were 2 other top-tier universe masters who were on par with the 8 great Hongmeng marshals. Although there were only 8 Hongmeng marshals in the army, there were 10 top-tier universe masters. The other 2 were Methane and Baili Z. Methane, in particular, was ranked above the 8 Hongmeng marshals. He was even known as the third marshal. As for Baili Z, she was a newly promoted top-tier universe master. When the second marshal came to the Milieu Tor realm, he brought these 2 along as his secret weapons. Now, it was time to reveal his trump card. Boom! Rumble! The addition of Methane and Baili Z immediately stabilized the rear defense of the third channel. The charge of the dying worms was stopped. Methane took the lead while Baili Z guarded the purple electric net. Their cooperation was flawless. Although the second marshal always did things his own way, it didn't mean that he didn't know how to lead an army. Since he was here to take over the first marshal's mess, he was naturally fully prepared. Pull Marshal Kalar Hongmeng and Marshal Black Python Hongmeng out of the main passage. Doing so would be putting the cart before the horse. The bug commander had to be lured out and killed, but with 1 large and 4 small passages, nothing could happen to any of them. Stopping the bug commander didn't mean that everything would be fine. The moment one of the passages was broken, the bug commander would rush in and the entire Taichu would be in great danger. From the looks of it, the second marshal's plan was not only successful, but it was perfect. After this battle, everyone will know that I, Peng Yu, am the true number 1 marshal in the army. Peng Yu's eyes shone brightly. His battle intent was boundless as he continuously attacked the insectoid commander. His morale was high. The first passage, with He Li and Moci, the 2 great Hongmeng marshals guarding it. Even though there were many dying worms attacking, He Li and Moci, 1 attacking and 1 defending. They led the Hongmeng army and guarded the entrance. He Li has appeared. Moci Hongmeng was covered in sharp spikes. His defense was extremely strong. I know. Marshal Wuli Hongmeng's entire body seemed to be on fire. Even though she was a woman, her attack power was extremely strong. Not a single bug under her had a complete corpse. The bug commander had appeared in the third passage. The second marshal's ambush was a success. These two pieces of news instantly spread. Not only the first passage, the second passage, the fourth passage, and the main passage all knew about it. It raised the morale of the Hongmeng army even higher. They were invincible. To the 8 great Hongmeng marshals, the appearance of this news made them feel more at ease. They had always been paranoid, not knowing if their close friend who had fought alongside them was an insectoid spy, or if an insectoid commander had sneaked in. But now, all the mysteries had been revealed. The entire army was united. There was no bug spy inside. As long as we defend, we will definitely win. MOCI Hongmeng let out a hoarse laugh. Come, Ili, help me. I'm a bit tired from blocking these 2 dying worms. Okay. Marshal Wally Hongmeng's movements were clean. In an instant, a fire phoenix appeared in the void. It swooped down and went straight for the dying worms. With Ili's help, MOCI Hongmeng naturally went all out. How could 2 mere dying worms stop him? The sharp spear shot out. MOCI Hongmeng's attack power increased greatly. His body swelled a little, and his face turned red. MOCI Hongmeng was about to explode when his face suddenly changed. His red face turned white, and his eyes widened in shock. Pooh! A terrifying red light enveloped him. The unpleasant sound of the dying worms rang in his ears. MOCI Hongmeng felt the universe in his body being eaten away. His life force was quickly draining away. No! MOCI Hongmeng opened his eyes. He only saw a blood-red light. Boom! Without giving him any chance, Marshal Wally Hongmeng descended from the sky. His face was expressionless, and his beautiful eyes were cold. His pure white arm pierced through MOCI Hongmeng's body. The 2 dying worms surrounded Marshal Wally Hongmeng, seemingly celebrating. Suddenly, Marshal Wally Hongmeng's eyes turned cold. The 2 dying worms hesitated and rushed to the first entrance. Wah! Marshal Li and Hongmeng's eyes flashed with a strange light. The entire territory was enveloped by the fiery red light. Marshal Li and Hongmeng seemed to have been injured as well. She spat out a mouthful of blood and was incomparably heavily injured. No! Everyone hold on. Hold on. We can't let the bugs. Chaos ensued. Following the fall of Marshal Wally Hongmeng and MOCI Hongmeng, it was hard for the Taichu generals to stop the attacks of the bugs. The dying worms were even more powerful than the Taichu generals. The trump card of the Taichu army had already been used by the second marshal. The first passage, like a great river flowing east, instantly fell into the enemy's hands. Boom! The Hongmeng army guarding the entrance was scattered by the bugs. The entrance to the first entrance completely collapsed. Chapter 3062. The first passage had fallen. What? Impossible. How could this be? The news instantly spread like a plague. That was the first passage, the largest passage in Mloto realm other than the main passage. The number of insects in this passage was also the highest. When the first passage fell, the insects rushed out of Mloto realm recklessly. The Taichu was already shrouded in terror. This time, even if the army had the ability to reach the heavens, they were unable to turn the situation around. Damn it! Damn it! The second marshal was hysterical. His anger soared into the sky as he attacked the insect commander. However, the latter's strength was not inferior to his at all. Moreover, his condition was extremely good. He was not moved by the battle at all. It was as if everything was within his expectations. His greenish-white eyes looked over. It seemed to be mocking and disdainful. Did the insects underestimate the Taichu too much? Or did the Taichu underestimate the insects too much? Hiss. The first marshal, who was flying at high speed, trembled all over. It was fear. It was fear towards the insects. However, it was not fear for himself. It was fear for death. It's my fault. It's my fault. The first marshal gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with extreme pain. He did not blame the second marshal. The latter was here to help. How could he blame the second marshal for not being able to stop the insects? He blamed himself. If he had not been impulsive and rushed for success, the insect commander would not have had the opportunity to take advantage of. As the marshal, he had to take full responsibility. There's still hope. There must be a way. The first marshal's gaze was blurred. At this moment, he was like a walking corpse. He could not accept this shocking news and did not know how to deal with it. Even though he was the marshal of an army, he was lost and hesitant at this moment. It was all his fault. Second brother. Lin Feng's voice was low. Did something happen, big brother? Shi Wanli was calmer than Lin Feng. Yes. Lin Feng frowned and looked into the distance. He sighed. In the end, we still can't avoid it. Lin Feng and Shi Wanli had already guessed this outcome. Ever since the insectoids set up a trap and lured the first Grand Marshal into the Miluo wilderness, this result was destined. Although the second Marshal arrived very quickly, he had just taken over after all. He wasn't familiar with the various aspects of the operation. Also, his abilities were inferior to the first Marshal's. Changing the commander before a battle was a great taboo for military strategists. They're underestimating the insectoids too much. Shi Wanli hit the nail on the head. Yes, from the various details and arrangements of this war, it was clear that the intelligence of the insectoid commander was outstanding. It was definitely not inferior to the first Grand Marshal. From the very beginning, he had secretly crossed Shunsong and Homing's Thousand Perception Mountain to secretly developing and strengthening in Miluo Tuo territory. Even after being caught off guard, the insectoid commander was still able to counterattack and break out of the encirclement. This showed how capable the insectoid commander was. Everything was going according to his plan. Besides, the insectoids are more united than we are. Although the Taichu were also united, all the major factions had their own selfish motives. This time, Mushan privately informed the first Grand Marshal because of his own selfish motives. Lin Feng knew this very well. However, the insectoids weren't like that. The insectoids only listened to the orders of the insectoid commander. They were like an arrow. Wherever the arrowhead pointed, the arrow would fly. Clean and neat. The Taichu didn't lose unjustly. Lin Feng wasn't as dejected as the first Grand Marshal. Instead, he felt relieved. Lin Feng only represented himself. He wasn't like the first Grand Marshal, who carried a lot of burden and was under a lot of pressure. Also, Lin Feng wouldn't give up so easily. Since it was already the truth, there was no point in thinking about it anymore. Since the problem had appeared, what he should do was to find a way to solve it. He shouldn't wallow in self-pity. Big brother, what do you plan to do? Shi Wanli asked. Let's go to Miluo territory first and meet up with the army. Then, we'll make a decision. Lin Feng didn't know too much about the current situation. He only knew that the first passage had been destroyed. He didn't know anything else. The entrance of Miluo Tuo realm was in chaos. The various Hongmeng marshals and Taichu marshals were all fighting against the insectoids. They were racing against time. Even if he asked now, he wouldn't be able to get anything out of them. Plus, the situation on the battlefield was constantly changing. It might not be a hopeless situation. The situation during Taishi's calamity was even worse than now. Didn't we still survive? When the heavens close a door, they will definitely open a window. There's always a way out. The first passage was destroyed. The second Grand Marshal and the insectoid commander couldn't win. The most senior marshal, Kaler, Hongmeng Marshal, temporarily took over the position of Grand Marshal. At this moment, he couldn't care less about taking over other people's affairs. He put his own interests aside. Everything he was doing now was to minimize the losses. Huahua, Black Python, immediately head to the third passage to provide support. Marshal Kaler gave the order. Marshal Huahua, who was in charge of the second passage, was a little hesitant, but he still quickly rushed to the third passage. Only Marshal Udi Hongmeng was left in charge of the second passage, and the pressure on him increased. With Black Python leaving, only Kaler was left in charge of the main passage. The pressure on him was even greater. Originally, the number of insectoids in the main passage was the highest. However, Marshal Kaler Hongmeng had no other choice. Destroying one passage meant death. Destroying two passages also meant death. If all the insectoids in the third passage broke through, the scale of the Taichu insect calamity would be even worse than Taishi's calamity. Now, he could only gamble. If only a small portion of the insectoids could break through the third passage, after the milieu Tall Realm insect calamity was settled, there would still be hope for them to track down the traces of the insectoids. I hope we can make it in time. Marshal Kalar Hongming ordered the troops while requesting for support. Although the pressure on the main passage was the highest, and the insectoids are the highest, it had an advantage that the other four passages did not have. That was that the main passage could directly teleport over. Previously, the various Taichu factions had watched the situation develop, not willing to send out experts. Now that the milieu Tuor realm had been broken, they would be extremely stupid if they did not make a move. Were they really going to watch the Taichu perish? If these super factions are really so stupid, what difference does it make whether I save them or not? Marshal Kalar Homing's 100 antennae flickered as he fought against the insectoid army alone. His body was covered in injuries. With his strength, it was impossible for him to defend the main passage. However, Marshal Kalar Hongming was willing to endure this hardship. He had his own beliefs and his own will. As a soldier, as Marshal Hongming, he had to set an example. The other Taichu generals, army commanders, and almighties were all using their own bodies to form a wall of flesh to resist the insectoids. What reason did he have to retreat? Marshal Kalar Hongming was not afraid of death. As long as it was for the Taichu, for his own beliefs, what was there to be afraid of? If I kill one more, the Taichu will have a bit more hope. Marshal Kalar Hongming relied on his strong will to support his broken body. Around him, there were a total of 5 big yin insects. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin. Chapter 3063. Blade-shattering stars is having a fever. It's in your hands right now. Please wait for a moment. Once the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 3064. The arrival of Marshal Hongming and Marshal Anaconda Hongming stopped the collapse of the first passage. The two Hongming marshals stood on the left and right, and they single-handedly raised the defense of the first passage. The Hongming army, which had been routed, suddenly had a backbone, and they reorganized their formation to resist the insectoids. Everyone hold on. We can't let any more insectoids break through. Damn insectoids, fight them to the death. The Hongming soldiers were hysterical, and they fought even harder. The destruction of the first passage was a huge blow to them. Although the Hongming marshals and Taichu marshals had to bear the greatest responsibility, the soldiers were also filled with guilt. They knew very well what kind of disaster the insectoids would bring to the Taichu army. They had to make up for their own mistakes. Under the command of the two Hongming marshals, the first passage's Hongming army erupted with tyrannical strength, and the insectoids who had taken the initiative were once again pushed back, and they firmly defended the first passage. However, this was not just the credit of the two Hongming marshals. When the first passage was destroyed, a large number of insectoids had escaped, causing the strength of the first passage's insectoids to plummet, and many dying insectoids had already left. Leave this to me. Quickly return to the main passage, Anaconda. Marshal Hongming ordered, his eyes blood red. Just Kalar alone is not enough to defend the main passage. Okay, Anaconda Hongming did not beat around the bush. After stabilizing the first passage's defense, they immediately rushed back to the main passage. Because of the collapse of the first passage, a huge hole had appeared in the army's defense, and the pressure from the army was like a mountain. They had to hold on. If the insectoids were allowed to advance any further and completely collapse, then there would be no medicine left. Kalar. When Anaconda Hongming returned to the main passage, he saw a shocking scene. Out of the 8 Hongming marshals, the oldest and most experienced Hongming marshal, Kalar, was flickering with white light, and the hundreds of antennae on his forehead bloomed like the sun. No, Anaconda Hongming was furious. Farewell, everyone. Kalar Hongming had a faint smile on his face. His life force had been completely exhausted, and he had held on until now under the encirclement of 5 dying insectoids. There was no way to continue. With Kalar Hongming's strength, even if he used endless energy, he would not be able to defeat 5 dying insectoids. Barely holding on until now was his limit, and he was only using his will alone. He had no regrets. Bang! Kalar Hongming. Kalar had Hongming. Used Kalar, used, and the encircling him, Kalar Hongming, Kalar. More importantly, Kalar did not give the dying insectoids the chance to devour his internal universe. Even if he had to die, he wanted to die with a bang. Swish! The black python Marshal Hongming's eyes widened in anger as a thick and vigorous black light streaked across the air in a perfect arc. It was like a soul-hooking chain as it shot toward one of the great yin worms that had been blasted away. A tyrannical energy wrapped around it like a black python. Li, one of the dying insectoids was caught off guard and was instantly killed. Lu, the remaining 4 dying insectoids shot out green and white light and instantly attacked Anaconda Hongming. Although there was one less insectoid and Kalar had been slightly injured, for dying insectoids against Anaconda Hongming was still an overwhelming advantage. You leave first, Kalar. Anaconda, will join you soon. Ha ha ha. Although Anaconda Hongming was not good with words, he was still a man of steel. He clearly knew his responsibility. Since he had come to the main tunnel, he would have to face the strongest attack of the insectoids. Anaconda Hongming had died, and he was not stronger than Kalar. Anaconda knew what the outcome would be. However, this was not a reason for him to retreat. There were some things that he knew would lead to death. He had to do it. Boom! Anaconda exploded with all his strength. At this moment, he did not have any other thoughts. He had to do his best to delay the insectoids and guard the main tunnel with his body. Desperate, the insectoids were attacking with all their might, and the army was defending at all costs. Anaconda Hongming was only the tip of the iceberg. It was only because he was Anaconda Hongming that he was especially conspicuous. In fact, every elite soldier in the army was fighting like this. Even if they only had a bit of strength left, they would still defend the front line. The insectoids would not retreat. They were fighting with their backs against the wall. The insectoid commander knew the situation of the insectoids. The big insects were killed one after another, and there was a huge gap in the core strength of the insectoids. If he did not break out of the encirclement, he would definitely be slowly eaten up by the Taichu. Fortunately, he succeeded. Ever since they broke out of the first tunnel, the insectoids had already achieved their goal. Now, they were just expanding their advantage. Even if they could not completely defeat the army, they hoped to open up another tunnel. At the very least, they would be able to delay the army so that they would not be able to chase after the insectoids. Whoosh! Whoosh! The insectoid commander and the second marshal were fighting fiercely. Their strength was on par. Not only did he restrict the insectoid commander, the insectoid commander also wanted to break out of the encirclement. However, the second marshal's strength still made him suffer. Although he could not defeat the second marshal was still able to hold him back. Although the second marshal's overall plan was a failure. However, at the very least, the second marshal had contributed quite a bit in dealing with the insectoid commander. Currently, in the army, other than the second marshal, no other cultivator could stop the insectoid commander. You want to go out? If you have the ability, you can run over my corpse. The second marshal gritted his teeth and attacked the insectoid commander furiously. He did not give him any chance to escape. He already knew that the first tunnel had been broken. He also knew that as the commander, he would not be able to escape the blame. Because of this, he could not let the insectoid commander escape again. He had to reduce the losses to the minimum. This was the common goal of all the soldiers in the army. They did not want to win this war because they had already lost. They only wanted to lose less. If fewer insectoids broke out of the encirclement, the Taichu's losses would be reduced. In the future, their chances of quelling the insectoid disaster would be higher. Quick! 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 The first marshal, Lin Feng, and 12 groups of Taichu Dominator elites were all rushing at full speed. They were doing their best to rush to the entrance of Miluo to our realm. It was better to be late than never. We're almost there, second brother. Lin Feng could faintly feel the smoke of war filling the air. Yes, Shirwan Li, who was rushing at full speed, did not need to hold back like the first marshal. He only needed to send his elder brother, Lin Feng, as soon as possible. As for the battle, he did not need to participate at all. Okay. Lin Feng was already prepared for battle. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Before he reached Miluo Tuo realm, he sensed it once again. Translator, Transin editor, Transin. Chapter 3065. The sensing was getting clearer and clearer. It was getting closer and closer to the entrance of Miluo to our realm. Lin Feng was very clear about what this meant. The insect race commander. After absorbing the big yin insect blackboard, I can indeed sense the insect race commander. Lin Feng had always held a trace of doubt that he could not sense the insect race commander in Miluo Wilderness. Whether it was in Homing's Thousand Perception Mountain or in Miluo Wilderness, he could sense it. But when it came to the insect race commander, he inexplicably could not sense it. It was not that the insect race commander was special, nor was there a problem with the sensing, but that the insect race commander was not in Miluo Wilderness. If I could be sure that there was a problem with the sensing and knew that the insect race commander was not in Miluo Wilderness, perhaps the insect race commander's plan would have failed. Lin Feng felt some regret. Almost just a little bit. At this point, all he could do was try his best to remedy the situation. Standing on Shirwan Li's back and overlooking the cruel battlefield, the endless corpses of the insect race and the Hongmeng army clearly showed how fierce the war was. The insect race had done their best to break out of the encirclement, and the Hongmeng army was not to be outdone. In order to defend their territory, they had suffered heavy losses. Should we stop here, big brother? Shirwan Li asked. No, keep going. Since he had sensed the insect race commander, Lin Feng would not be entangled with the universe-devouring insect queen and the universe-splitting insect king, and went straight to the location of the insect race commander. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. Lin Feng had long wanted to meet the insect race commander. Miluo Tuo realm, main passage. Marshal Kaler Hongmeng did his best and did not hesitate to sacrifice himself. Marshal Black Python Hongmeng took over the heavy baton and similarly shouldered the heavy responsibility of the defense of the entire army with his own strength, firmly guarding the wide main passage. Covered in blood, he had no regrets. Each of the 8 great Hongmeng marshals was a man of steel and would not back down easily. Come on. Marshal Black Python Hongmeng had a sinister expression on his face. His hysterical state was like that of a devil, but it deeply infected every soldier in the Hongmeng army, and they fought with their lives on the line. Even Hongmeng's marshal was leading the troops, so how could they slack off? For their beliefs, for the Taichu. Again and again, the battle formation was broken and reformed. With Black Python Marshal Hongmeng at the center, the Hongmeng army on the main passage erupted with astonishing cohesion and fighting power. They had an unyielding military spirit. The rewards of risking one's life and sacrificing one's life were valuable. Hongmeng's reinforcements had finally arrived. Sorry, I'm late. The first to arrive were the powerhouses from the Sky Swamp Alliance. Since the beginning of the war, they had sent a large number of powerhouses as reinforcements to fight the insectoids together with the army. After receiving Marshal Hongmeng's message, the Heavenly Swamp Alliance immediately rushed over to help. With universe rulers as the core, although there were not many of them at the moment, with the first batch of powerhouses arriving, there would naturally be a second and third batch. After that, the Daoyin Palace, Geo Corporation, and Taichu Inquisition all rushed over to maintain the defense of the main passage. Although the situation was perilous, the various superpowers worked together to turn the tide. At this point, the defense of the main passage was once again restored. Marshal Hongmeng Kaler had made the right bet. This was because he knew that as the insectoids broke through the barrier and marched straight into the Taichu, the various superpowers would no longer be able to protect themselves. It did not mean that the other superpowers would be able to obtain more resources and more power in the Taichu, just because their strength had weakened. That was not the case. The various superpowers knew clearly what the final outcome of the insectoid disaster would be. This was no longer a matter of self-preservation. The Geo Corporation, which had been watching from the sidelines, had also sent out a large number of powerhouses. The disaster of Taishur was still vivid in their minds. Oh, a huge light sword appeared in the void and descended from the sky. The Hongmeng airflow gathered at the tip of the light sword and shot straight into the sky. This was definitely the strongest force on the battlefield. A terrifying sound rang out as a yin insect was smashed into pieces. It was unstoppable. Goddamn insectoids! All the powerhouses raised their heads as though they were looking at a god. It was an Emperor Realm expert with 4 arms and a golden tail. The battle armor on his chest had a huge one character imprinted on it. His eyes were sharp and sharp, radiating light in all directions. For treasured swords had already been unsheathed, revealing their sharpness. The first marshal, he had finally arrived. Die! His green face was filled with killing intent. As he roared, he crazily attacked the yin insects as though he was venting his anger. When he saw the corpses all over the ground, especially Marshal Hongmeng Caller's corpse, the first marshal was completely enraged. No wonder he could no longer contact Marshal Hongmeng Caller. As the commander, the one who decided to fight against the insectoids, the first marshal knew what had happened. He could see through it with one glance. Anger filled the sky. Boundless sword energy surged as the first marshal started a massacre. It was as though he was possessed. Wherever the sword energy passed, the insectoids would be smashed into pieces. None of them were his match. The powerhouses of the various factions all retreated in case they angered this murderous god. I'm here. The first marshal's voice was hoarse. It was filled with pain and self-blame. He glanced at the powerhouses of the various factions. Everyone, please head to the other passageways to provide support. On behalf of the army, I'm very grateful. Although he was in pain, the responsibility on his shoulders was even heavier. The first marshal didn't have time to blame himself, nor did he have time to feel dejected. He was the commander of the army. He had to carry the entire army. No matter how bad the situation was, he had to face it. That was because he had no path of retreat. The Taichu had no path of retreat either. As the first marshal rushed to the main passageway and stabilized the morale of the army, the powerhouses of the various factions were injected with new blood. The Taichu's morale and strength increased. The pressure on the second passageway, which was in the most danger, instantly decreased. The fourth passageway also received reinforcements under the stubborn defense of Beimeng Anji. Most of the powerhouses gathered at the first passageway. They suppressed the remaining insectoids with their absolute strength. The scales of the war were tilted towards the Taichu's side. However, it was too late. Everything was already set in stone. The insectoid army that broke out of the first passageway scattered towards the Taichu. It was extremely difficult to find them. The apocalyptic disaster of Taishur appeared once again in the Hongmeng Sea. Even if I can't stop the spread of the insectoids, I can at least cause them to lose their leader. Lin Feng was getting closer and closer to the first passageway. His senses towards the insectoid commander became stronger and stronger. His blood boiled. Snow Jewel kept moving as though it could sense its master's fighting spirit. It wanted to fight. Lin Feng could already see the intense battle from afar. It was the second marshal and the insectoid commander. The golden flames and the evil and powerful aura gradually enlarged in front of his eyes. It was him. Chapter 3066. In the third pathway, even though the second marshal successfully lured the bug commander out and held him back, his power wasn't enough to win against the bug commander. They were both pinnacle universe rulers, but the first marshal was stronger, especially close combat, which wasn't his forte. The bug commander didn't have any weaknesses. Like the other big yin bugs, he was an ultimate bug race bug. No matter if it was attack, defense, or body, he was impeccable. He was also extremely intelligent. Plus, his willpower existed within every big yin bug. Not only could he give out orders clearly, but he was also aware of the changing situation on the battlefield. The bug commander naturally knew the current situation. Since the arrival of the reinforcements and the first marshal, the bug commander knew that this was the end of the bug race's attack. They wouldn't be able to expand the situation any further. Continuing to fight wouldn't help. However, just like how the first marshal looked down on the insectoid commander also looked down on this seemingly boorish second marshal. After making me, paying you, suffer such a huge loss, you want to leave just like that? You're too naive. The second marshal's close combat ability wasn't as good as the first marshal's, but his entanglement was top-notch. No matter how the bug commander used all sorts of abilities, he couldn't shake off the second marshal's lightning-like attacks. The lightning seemed to have eyes. Not only did it strike the bug commander, but it also struck the surrounding space, blocking his path of retreat. This wasn't normal lightning. Instead, it was the level 7 Hongmeng Law Thunder God. The second marshal was most proficient in the Hongmeng Law, and he had already cultivated it to perfection. Even though he wasn't like Lin Feng, who had reached the innate level, he could still unleash the mysteries of the Hongmeng Law. Spread. Numb. Thunder God's lightning, other than its powerful attack, was extremely powerful. It was like a bomb exploding, affecting the surroundings. If it only weakened the spread, it wouldn't be surprising. However, Thunder God's lightning had a numbing effect. It wasn't just a direct hit that would cause numbness. The spreading lightning had the same effect. The insectoid commander did not care about being paralyzed by a single bolt of lightning, but being paralyzed by hundreds or thousands of bolts of lightning was enough to slow down the insectoid commander's speed. This was especially so when this area was a battlefield. The lightning from the god of thunder was like a natural domain, making it difficult for the insectoid commander to move. When Iluin comes, he will naturally deal with you, you stinking bug. The second marshal hated the insectoid commander to the bone. It was because of the insectoid commander that he suffered a great loss this time. The first tunnel was destroyed, and the insectoids swarmed into the Taichu. He couldn't forgive himself, even if he died 10,000 times. The second marshal didn't have any personal grudges against the first marshal. He just didn't want to accept the first marshal's decision. Even if he wasn't convinced, he knew that the first marshal's direct combat ability was above his. As long as he worked together with the first marshal, they would definitely be able to kill the insectoid commander. He's here. The second marshal felt a powerful aura coming towards him. Its target was the insectoid commander. He was elated. Suddenly, with the insectoid commander as the center, a dark red light appeared and wrapped around the golden light. It's not Iluin. The second marshal frowned. After competing with the first marshal for countless eras, he knew the first marshal's abilities. He was good at attacking. If the first marshal was here, then what appeared above the insectoid commander would be a sword and not a Hongmeng source item. Domain restriction. The first marshal knew his abilities very well. With him restraining the insectoid commander, it would be difficult for the insectoid commander to escape the lightning net. The overlapping domain attacks would clash instead. Yuan Venerate? The second marshal was stunned when he sensed the aura of the newcomer. How could it be a Yuan Venerate? Why would a mere Yuan Venerate come to this battlefield? Furthermore, he even attacked the insectoid commander. You have no sense of propriety at all. The second marshal's veins were bulging as he was furious. He was about to berate the newcomer when he heard the insectoid commander's pained cry. This shocked him. Golden Hongmeng power. The power of a world lord. Obliteration blade technique. Lin Feng turned into a stream of light and went straight for the insectoid commander. Unlike the second marshal, Lin Feng was very good at close combat. After obtaining the Mountain Core realm, his close combat abilities were even better. Although he was only a Yuan Venerate and couldn't perfectly unleash the Golden Hongmeng power, his power wasn't any weaker than the second marshal's. It was even stronger. Boom! Lin Feng was filled with fighting spirit. The Warsaber Snow Jewel was wrapped in a golden Grand Mist aura, vividly displaying Lin Feng's golden Grand Mist power. His Annihilation Saber art, which had been brought to the point of perfection, combined with his small world incarnation, was Lin Feng's capital to establish himself in the Milieu wilderness. Dozens of big yin insects died under the snow jade sword. Clang! The insectoid commander wasn't weak either. After fighting with the second marshal for a long time, he didn't suffer any injuries. The second marshal's attacks were more focused on restraining the insectoid commander. The sturdy scales on his body were even stronger than the ruler armor set. With a loud roar, the insectoid commander switched from defense to offense. He was even more perceptive than the second marshal. The insectoids did not differentiate their combat power based on their strength. This was especially true for the insectoid commander, who had superior intelligence. The moment Lin Feng appeared, he had already recognized this goddamn human. It was precisely because this human had killed dozens of children, dying insects, that they had no choice but to launch an attack in advance and forcefully break through. Under normal circumstances, by occupying the Milieu realm's natural terrain and endless energy, the insectoid commander had originally planned to fight steadily and steadily, slowly whittling down the army's strength. This was the most perfect plan. Just as they were a step away from success, a human suddenly appeared out of nowhere and killed the children one by one. They had lost more than half of their forces. After that, it slowly nibbled away at the insectoid's foundation and even found a place to hide. Human, I will kill you. The insectoid commander immediately gave up on the second marshal. His green and white eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. A terrifying soul illusion instantly appeared as he attacked with all his might. If it weren't for this damned human, the insectoids would have conquered the Taichu long ago. Great realm embodiment. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't underestimate the insectoid commander. He had already put up his defenses long ago and was going all out. One domain was connected to another. As the great realm embodiment appeared, numerous small realm embodiments instantly formed a line, and a dark red glow intertwined. Head-on boom. Lin Feng and the insectoid commander weren't afraid of each other. Neither of them was willing to give an inch. On the other hand, the second marshal was stunned. He had been inexplicably ignored by the insectoid commander. This human kid who had suddenly appeared seemed to have killed the insectoid commander's entire family. The moment he appeared, the insectoid commander was furious. What shocked him even more was that this human kid was only Yuan Venerate. He was terrifyingly strong. Chapter 3067. From surprise to astonishment and then to shock. As the second marshal watched the battle unfold before him, his feelings changed with every passing moment. The Yuan Venerate human before him had completely exceeded his knowledge and imagination. Who is he? The second marshal stared at Lin Feng as though he had seen him somewhere before, but he couldn't recall where. Very impressive. His strength wasn't any weaker than his own. The battle between Lin Feng and the bug race commander was much more intense than the battle between the second marshal and the second marshal. One was a head-on battle, while the other was a guerrilla warfare. Naturally, the bug race commander's killing intent towards the second marshal wasn't as strong as it was towards Lin Feng. The bug race commander hated Lin Feng to the core. How could he let go of the culprit who had ruined his plans after much difficulty? However, Lin Feng wasn't a pushover that the bug race commander could crush at will. His obliteration blade technique had been perfected to perfection. Coupled with his mountain core realm embodiment, Lin Feng's close combat strength was rather strong. Triple obliteration. The three small realm embodiments formed a line as Lin Feng's obliteration blade technique unleashed a powerful might. Wave after wave of explosions occurred as he gained the upper hand. However, Lin Feng's defense was much weaker than the bug race commander's. Chi, 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 chi. The bug race commander waved its 12 blade-like arms. Its attacks were swift and violent. Even though Lin Feng had the protection of his great realm embodiment, it was still difficult for him to completely defend himself. In particular, the bug race commander had identified Lin Feng's weakness and was very unyielding in his attacks. Impressive. Lin Feng retreated as he fought. The bug race commander was completely different from the big yin insect he had killed before. Not only was it stronger, but it also had extraordinary intelligence. Given Lin Feng's current strength, he still couldn't take down the bug race commander. However, Lin Feng was already very satisfied. When he had just entered the Miluo Tor realm, he had never thought that he would be able to confront the insect race Grand Commander head-on. Even when he had found the primordial Dian Worm Black in the Miluo wilderness, Lin Feng had had the mentality of entering a tiger's den. He was well aware of his own strength. Although Lin Feng had forged the Hongmeng Golden Body, he was still a Yuan Venerate, and his internal universe was imperfect. This was a huge limitation. Thunder God, descend. Although the second marshal was shocked by Lin Feng's extraordinary strength, he had been watching this battle closely. He knew his duty well. He had to restrain the insectoid commander. Seeing that Lin Feng was at a disadvantage, the second marshal instantly used his killer move. In the air, the Thunder God rampaged. Lightning bolts shot towards the insectoid commander. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. With the help of the second marshal, he was able to turn the tables and attack the insectoid commander. The insectoid commander was in a difficult situation. While dodging the lightning bolts, his speed slowed down significantly. How could he miss such an opportunity? Quadruple annihilation. Lin Feng used another small world embodiment. Every additional small world embodiment not only put more pressure on his body, but it also required him to have a higher understanding of the Hongmeng nomological laws. When he used quadruple annihilation, Lin Feng was no longer able to control his small world embodiment perfectly. However, Lin Feng believed in the second marshal. Boom! This attack was combined with the second marshal's Thunder God, so the power of the attack increased. As the Dian Worm roared, its green and white eyes locked onto Lin Feng. Its attack landed on Lin Feng's weak defense. However, a Thunder God shield suddenly appeared in front of Lin Feng and blocked the Dian Worm's ferocious attack. Whoosh! Lin Feng glanced at the Thunder God from the corner of his eye. The latter also glanced over. Although this was the first time they had worked together, they had a tacit understanding. Kill! 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 The insectoid commander was at a disadvantage, and it became even more furious. It tried to break through the Thunder God's shield, but how could it be so easy? Another dark red light appeared, and the attack of Lin Feng's battle blade was even stronger than before. Quadruple annihilation. Lin Feng almost gave up on defending and focused on attacking. He trusted the second marshal completely. The insectoid commander screamed. Its strong defense was finally broken through. The evil red aura spread out. It was injured. Boom, boom. The earth shook and the sky shook. The entire battlefield shook violently. Dirt and rocks flew everywhere. The expression of the second marshal changed. The lightning god attack instantly condensed. All the lightning turned into a purple lightning net that furiously shot towards the insectoid commander. Don't even think about escaping. The second marshal gritted his teeth. How could he let the insectoid commander escape? All his efforts would be in vain. Oh no! Lin Feng was shocked. The lightning defense in front of him became weaker. The evil aura of the insectoid commander didn't weaken at all. Escaping was just a feint. Its true killing move was still to attack. The green and white eyes flashed with killing intent. Screech! Screech! The second marshal's Thunder God shield was instantly shattered. Lin Feng's defense was instantly broken. The blood-red arm went straight for Lin Feng's head. The Mountain Core World incarnation couldn't block it anymore. The quadruple annihilation attack carried all of Lin Feng's energy towards the insectoid commander. The insectoid commander didn't defend against it. It attacked Lin Feng without holding back. It wanted to kill this damned human even if it was injured. Unlike Lin Feng, the insectoid commander's defense was extremely strong. Its scales were indestructible. It wouldn't be heavily injured even if it was hit a few more times. Human die. The insectoid commander endured the intense pain. Its blade went straight for Lin Feng's flesh. Suddenly, the golden light around it shone brightly. The energy was terrifying and chaotic. The golden engravings flickered intensely. Lin Feng didn't have any fear on his face. He was calm and serious. His killing intent didn't decrease at all. Great destruction. At the last moment before the insectoid commander attacked, Lin Feng activated the power of his Great World Incarnation. The strongest level 7 Grand Mist laws that originated from the Mountain Core, the Great Annihilation, could be executed with the Mountain Core. Lin Feng could do the same. Although Lin Feng had only comprehended the Great Annihilation to large success and had yet to reach perfection, and thus was unable to self-detonate, his Great World Incarnation could. Boom, 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 boom. Lin Feng's attack used up all of his Great World Incarnation's energy. When the second marshal removed his Thunder God shield, Lin Feng had already reacted. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to use Great Destruction in time. In terms of battle experience, Lin Feng wasn't any weaker than the insectoid commander. Blood spurted out. The shocking power of Great Destruction sent Lin Feng flying. Although it didn't detonate itself, it was the explosion of the Great World Incarnation. The insectoid commander was at the center of the explosion. Lin Feng was also very close to it. Even with the protection of his small world incarnation, Lin Feng's defense wasn't strong. This explosion caused him to be heavily injured. Don't let it escape, Lin Feng roared. His mind was in a daze, and his senses were blurry. He could still feel that the insectoid commander's aura was still there. It was just that it was much weaker. He was holding on with his willpower. The moment Lin Feng was sent flying, he felt a familiar aura. It was his closest comrade, his second brother, Sherwan Li. The sound of gliding through the air entered his ears. Lin Feng landed firmly on Sherwan Li's back. At this moment, all the pain was excruciating. He couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Chapter 3068. This was a battle that was enough to be recorded in the history of the Taichu. Whether it was the battle that lasted for dozens of eras, or the final battle where the Zergs broke through the entrance and the army defended with their lives, it was all memorable. Unfortunately, the army lost this battle. The Taichu lost. Although it was not a crushing defeat, the Zergs had the upper hand at this node. Wah! Lin Feng abruptly opened his eyes. His spiritual sense cleared, and his memories surged. Not long ago, he had used the 7th-stage primordial law, Great Obliteration, which he had not perfected. When he had heavily injured the insect race commander at close range, he had also heavily injured himself. Lin Feng knew that the Zerg commander was not dead. If he had used the apocalypse at perfection, combined with the Great World Incarnation's innate power, which was comparable to the level 8 Hongmeng law at perfection, he would have had a chance to kill the Zerg commander. But then, he would not have been able to survive. His current defense was still far from enough. You're awake, big brother? Sherwan Li's voice sounded in his ears. Lin Feng slowly got up. He was on Sherwan Li's broad back. After being blown away by the apocalypse, it was Sherwan Li who had brought him away from the battlefield. And Lin Feng nodded lightly. Thank you, second brother. We're brothers. No need to be so polite. Sherwan Li smiled and asked with concern, You didn't leave any injuries, right, big brother? I'm fine. Lin Feng checked his body. There were no major problems. After all, he had the protection of the small world incarnation, and his physical body had reached the limit of 100 times. He was not strong, but he was not weak either. Hua, after absorbing and refining the Hongmeng fruit, Lin Feng recovered his weak body. He had used up a lot of energy in this battle. Even with his willpower, he had fainted. His injuries were serious. What's the situation now? Lin Feng sighed and recovered a little. What he was most concerned about now was the situation on the battlefield after he fainted. Did the army guard the entrance of the Miluo Tuo territory? Did the Zerg commander die? It's okay. Sherwan Li hesitated. There's no harm in saying it. Lin Feng already had some guesses in his heart. Sherwan Li sighed softly. Big brother, your great destruction was too powerful. The second marshal was caught off guard and was also affected. Although he wasn't injured, the insectoid commander found an opportunity to escape through the ground. He really escaped. Lin Feng frowned. He knew that the heavily injured insectoid commander would definitely flee, but there were some things that he could not do even if he knew. Big brother, don't blame yourself. Shi Wanli said. The insectoid commander has already prepared a path of retreat. He can attack or retreat. Even if you don't join the battle, the insectoid commander still has enough power to shake off the second marshal. I know. How could Lin Feng not know what the insectoid commander was capable of? Only after exchanging blows with Zhang Xian did he realize that Zhang Xian was not only powerful, but also resourceful and scheming. The insectoid commander dared to appear in front of the army this time. If he didn't even have the ability to protect himself, he would be underestimating this powerful enemy. Unless you had the power to suppress the insectoid commander, you wouldn't be able to stop the insectoid commander from escaping in your territory. The entire Miluo Tor realm had long become the insectoid's backyard. If Fan Zhu was here, the insectoid commander would definitely die. Lin Feng felt helpless too. He had tried to contact Fan Zhu, but there was no reply. The insectoid calamity had erupted to such an extent, but Fan Zhu didn't appear. Lin Feng was also very puzzled. What could be more urgent and more dangerous than this insectoid calamity? The insectoids retreated after that, right? Lin Feng said. The insectoid commander had retreated, so the insectoids couldn't attack anymore. Also, the first marshal had arrived, and the Taichu's reinforcements had also arrived. If they continued fighting, it wouldn't benefit the insectoids at all. Also, the insectoids had already won. The first entrance had been broken, and tens of thousands of insectoids had entered the Taichu. These weren't ordinary universe-devouring bugs or universe-devouring queen bugs. They were the core forces of the insectoids. Universe-devouring bug emperor, universe-splitting bug king. They could fuse into the insectoid race's ultimate form, Big Yin bug. Also, there were Big Yin bugs in the first entrance. Yes, Shi Wanli said. Although the army had been defeated, the Hongming army and Hongming's marshal fought to the death and finally succeeded in defending. Failed, successfully defended. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Shi Wanli's description was very subtle. In terms of the battle, the army had indeed won, but in terms of the overall situation, the army's defenses had been torn apart by the insectoids. Countless insectoids had entered the Taichu, and the consequences were unimaginable. Insectoid commander. After Lin Feng recovered, he tried to sense the insectoid commander, but he couldn't sense anything. He knew that the insectoid commander had escaped, but he couldn't sense it. This meant that the insectoid commander had hidden himself again. I'll dig you out even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Since Lin Feng was certain that the insectoid commander could sense it, he was no longer afraid that the insectoid commander would hide. Moreover, he had the Yao Tuo clan as an ally. Unless the insectoid commander could hide without leaving any traces behind, Lin Feng would definitely be able to find it. Big brother, what do you plan to do next? Shi Wanli asked. Lin Feng pondered for a while and said slowly, I want to meet the first marshal and second marshal to understand the current situation. Shi Wanli could vaguely tell that Lin Feng was implying something. Lin Feng said, Second brother, don't you think there's something strange about this matter? The entrance to the first tunnel has been destroyed? Shi Wanli asked. Lin Feng nodded. According to Marshal Yi Yuan's arrangements, the third and fourth tunnels are the weakest. Although the insectoids have more big yin insects, the pressure on the 4 smaller tunnels shouldn't be too different. Yet, the first tunnel was destroyed. Even if the insectoid commander attracted attention in the third tunnel, the insectoids should be attacking the fourth tunnel, which is only guarded by Marshal Hongming. Then, it should be the second tunnel, which is slightly weaker than the first tunnel, or the main tunnel where the second marshal was moved away. The first tunnel was destroyed. It's very strange. Also, there was no chance for reinforcements. This means that it was destroyed instantly. There must be something wrong. The battle was intense before, so he didn't have the time to think too much about it. Now that he thought about it again, Lin Feng was filled with doubts. He even felt that the insectoid commander appearing in the third tunnel was part of the plan. To be able to plot against the first marshal, but be ambushed by the second marshal? That didn't make sense. Indeed, there's something wrong. Shi Wanli wasn't stupid. He fell into deep thought after hearing Lin Feng's words. After using his communicator for a long time, Lin Feng was about to contact the first marshal. The latter had already sent a communication request. Lin Feng immediately accepted the call. After chatting for a while, he ended the call. Let's go, second brother. Let's go to the main tunnel. The first marshal, second marshal, and all the other Hongmeng marshals are gathered together. Perfect. Let's settle this matter. Chapter 3069. Milieu Tuo Realm, Main Passage. There were still remnants of the battle, and the air was filled with the thick smell of blood. Although there were no more insectoids, their faces were solemn and their brows were tightly furrowed. In this journey, they were completely defeated. The terror of the insectoid plague was unimaginable. Marshal, are you still unable to contact the army god? Beiming Anji Hongming's expression was solemn. The first marshal shook his head. As a legend of the army god had always been in control of the army and protected the Taichu. Even during the Battle of Thousand Perception Mountain in Hongmeng, the army god had been in charge of the entire situation. However, the army god had disappeared. Such a huge matter happened, but the army god is uncontactable. Yes, what should we do? Is the Taichu going to be eaten by the insectoids like Taishu? The Grand Mist Marshal's worried expressions were written all over their faces. The first marshal knew that the matter was not so simple. Not only was the army god uncontactable, but even Fan Zhu did not reply. When he was plotted against by the insectoid commander, the first person he contacted was the army god. After that, he contacted Fan Zhu. The two of them were the protectors of the Taichu. Every time the Taichu was in trouble, they would be the ones to step forward. However, this time, neither of them could be contacted. Secluded cultivation? The two of them together? Something must be wrong. Moreover, the primordial sea had been moving strangely in the past 100 years. Many hidden experts from the 5 great origin chaotic universes had appeared. The first marshal knew that something big was about to happen. However, he did not have time to think about all this. The army god was not here, so he was the backbone of the army. He was the commander in charge of quelling the insectoid plague. The army god had given him such an important task, so he could not disappoint the army god. Whether the army god is here or not, we need to deal with the problem in front of us. We cannot let the insectoid plague expand and harm the Taichu. The first marshal had already calmed down. The mistake had already been made, so there was no point in pursuing it. What they needed to do now was to reclaim the lost land and take back what they had lost bit by bit. How should we deal with it? Marshal Hongmeng said, the current situation is much worse than before. It's even harder for us to take care of both the front and rear. There's no news about the insectoid commander either. He's completely hidden. Marshal Udi Lideman said, in addition to He Li and Black Python being heavily injured, the Taichu generals have suffered countless casualties. Our losses in this battle are much greater than the insectoids. The atmosphere was stifling. The 8 Hongmeng marshals were not only the backbone of the army, but they were also close comrades. Now that their comrades had died one by one, it was a heavy blow to the surviving Hongmeng marshals. For example, Hongmeng Marshal Kaller was a man of virtue and prestige. Many Hongmeng marshals were brought up by him. Hongmeng Marshal Tadamo. Among the 8 Hongmeng marshals, his strength was second only to Beiming Anji, Hongmeng Marshal Beiming. He had a forthright personality and was deeply admired by the other Hongmeng marshals. That's why we have to take revenge for them. The first marshal hid his sadness completely. His scaly tail slapped the ground heavily. We are soldiers, soldiers who protect the Taichu. Look at you now. What do you look like? Homeless dogs. The first marshal glared at him like an angry beast. The other Hongmeng marshals did not dare to look at him directly. If you lose, go and win it back. Use your own hands and take it back bit by bit. Are you all scared? His cold gaze swept across the Hongmeng marshals. Their expressions were ugly. That's right. Were they scared? Were they scared of the insectoids? We have to take revenge for our brothers. Marshal Udi Lideman snorted. Marshal is right. We can't admit defeat like this. Beiming Anji, Hongmeng Marshal Beiming's back. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Kill them all. Marshal, do you have a plan? Marshal Udi Hongmeng looked over. The first marshal nodded. I have a preliminary plan, but I'm still waiting for someone. Waiting for someone? The Grand Mist Marshals looked at each other. They didn't understand what the first marshal meant. Only the silent second marshal knew. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and lowered his head. He didn't say a word. He blamed himself. Although the first marshal didn't say anything about him, the second marshal felt even more uneasy about it. He was the one who misled them. He was also the one who let the insectoid commander run away. He had to bear the greatest responsibility for this loss. He's here. The second marshal didn't even raise his head. His voice was low and his expression relaxed. It was as though a rock had been lifted from his heart. Swoosh! Udi Lidaman, Beiming Angie, and Udi Lidaman looked over. They saw a large bird flying over. In an instant, a young man wearing the Dominator's suit jumped down from the sky. Who was he? You're finally here, Lin Feng. The first marshal gave a relieved smile. It's good that you're fine, the second marshal said softly. Lin Feng, Udi Lidaman, Beiming Angie, and Udi Lidaman all knew about Lin Feng. Lin Feng had contributed greatly to the destruction of the insectoid plague. Dozens of big yin worms had been killed by Lin Feng. He could be considered the #1 contributor to the destruction of the bug race. It turned out that the key person the first marshal had been waiting for was Lin Feng. Seeing is believing. Brother Lin Feng's reputation is well-deserved. Marshal Beiming Angie Hongming looked at Lin Feng with sparkling eyes. He was the strongest among the 8 Hongming marshals and had the deepest perception of Lin Feng. Although he couldn't sense any aura and Lin Feng was only a Yuan venerate, his intuition told him that Lin Feng's strength wasn't inferior to his. You are indeed worthy of being a Taichu hero. You are an extraordinary individual who swept away Huang Zun's investiture of the gods and the ultimate god investiture of the gods. Marshal Udi Lidaman shook hands with Lin Feng and praised him. With Brother Lin Feng joining us, our strength will increase, Marshal Udi Lidaman said. Lin Feng got to know everyone and was full of admiration. They were all true heroes who had fought against the bug race. What's the exact situation now, Sir Marshal? Lin Feng didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. The bug race has already retreated back to the Miluo Tua territory and scattered to hide. Just like every time after a great battle, they will wait until they have absorbed enough energy and produced more bug race before attacking again. As for the bug race that has penetrated deep into the Taichu, there hasn't been any movement yet. The first marshal described the current situation without hesitation. After this battle, not only did he know that Lin Feng was on his side, but he also knew that Lin Feng was a very helpful comrade. Just relying on the army wasn't enough to quell the bug race. His hope was on this unassuming Yuan venerate before him. Lin Feng listened attentively to the first marshal's description, including the current situation and the details of the battle. Everything was very important. Lin Feng pondered for a long time as he digested the information carefully. I want to see someone, Sir Marshal. Lin Feng raised his head. Who? Marshal Wali Hongming. Chapter 3070. Lin Feng, what do you mean? Udi Otter Hongming was instantly enraged. Ao Huai and Beiming Angie Hongming's eyebrows also sank. Lin Feng naturally would not be intimidated by Udi Otter Hongming's aura. He stared straight at him. You're angry because you're also suspicious. I'm not. Udi Otter Hongming's expression changed. Ao Huai Hongming's voice was low. Healy is our comrade, a hero. She was ambushed by an insectoid spy when she was guarding the first passage. She's still heavily injured and unconscious. Lin Feng, you can't just suspect someone without evidence, especially a warrior who has sacrificed everything for the war. Beiming Angie Hongming's gaze was deep. The first Grand Marshal and second Grand Marshal did not say anything, only listening quietly. This was especially so for the first Marshal. He knew Lin Feng's methods and abilities the best. This was a human who could kill dozens of big yin insects and force the insectoid commander to stake everything on a single attack. Lin Feng's words were definitely not without reason. Let me ask you, who is the insectoid spy? Lin Feng asked. We don't know. Udi Otter Hongming snorted coldly and turned his head. They should have already escaped. Lin Feng's gaze fell on Bei Ming and Ji Hongming. What do you think? Bei Ming and Ji Hongming said in a low voice. According to what He Li said, Mosai Hongming, who was fighting side by side with her that day, suddenly attacked. She, who was ambushed, fought with Mosai Hongming. Although she killed Mosai Hongming, she was heavily injured and could no longer guard the first passage. Are there any flaws? Lin Feng looked at the first Grand Marshal. The first Marshal sighed softly and said to Lin Feng, "They are all warriors who sacrificed everything for the war. Without evidence, we can't jump to conclusions so easily. If we do that, it will disappoint all the warriors. What if I say I do?" Lin Feng suddenly opened his mouth, startling all the Hongmeng marshals. "What evidence?" The second marshal's eyes darkened. Lin Feng swept his gaze across and extended his hand. "I've refined the Big Yin insect blackboard before, so I can absorb the insect race's energy. Earlier, I found the Big Yin insects one by sensing their energy, including the insect race's commander. Therefore, if General Woli Hongming is a spy of the insect clan, no matter how deeply he hides himself, and no matter how perfect his possession is, if he is an insect clan member, his life force and energy must be there. If not, I apologize to her." Lin Feng looked at all the Hongmeng marshals and said, "If you're not a spy of the insect clan, you also want to prove your innocence, right? This is not an insult. Everyone has sacrificed everything for this war, especially at this juncture. We can't have any doubts. If you are, then you are. If you aren't, then you aren't. If we want to fight back, we must first eliminate all internal problems." All the Hongmeng marshals pursed their lips tightly. Their expressions were solemn. Just like what Lin Feng said, they had their suspicions too. However, that was their comrade who had fought alongside them. She was a comrade who had gone through thick and thin together on a mission. Now, she was heavily injured by the insect clan. How could they suspect her? "I'll bring you to see He Li." The first marshal looked at Lin Feng. As a marshal, he had to make a prompt decision. Lin Feng was right. No matter if she was a spy or not, he had to be certain. The Taichu Origin Chaotic Universe was guarding the Star Wheel. The heavily injured Hongmeng soldiers and Taichu marshals were recuperating here. They were heroes who had fought against the insect clan, so the army provided them with the best treatment. Although the army hadn't suffered a great loss in the battle at the Miluota boundary, they had still suffered a great loss. "Grand Marshal! Grand Marshal!" All the soldiers bowed when they saw the first marshal. The first marshal's prestige in the army was rather high. Everyone looked curiously at the human beside the first marshal. He looked familiar, but they couldn't recall where they had seen him before. Was he also a soldier of the Hongmeng army? A Yuan venerate human? The Hongmeng army soldiers only reacted when the first marshal's figure gradually disappeared from sight. Was that Lin Feng? Yes. Isn't it just Lin Feng? I even saw the miracle of him sweeping through the ultimate god list. Lin Feng is actually with the first marshal. Did he join the army? That's not right. What are Lin Feng and the first marshal doing here? The Hongmeng army soldiers were puzzled. It wasn't a problem for the first marshal to come here, but for Lin Feng to come here, it was very strange. "Do you have an idea?" the first marshal asked as he spoke. "No," Lin Feng replied honestly. He knew what the first marshal was asking. "Although I can sense the position of the insect race commander, I need to be close to him in the same area. The Miluo-Tuo boundary is so big that it might take thousands of eras to explore it completely. If I can't sense the insect race commander in the Miluo wilderness, it will be very difficult." "Is that so?" The first marshal also guessed the answer. Lin Feng said, "There will always be a way. At least the situation hasn't worsened yet." The first marshal said, "I've already talked to the other 4 super factions. The insect race that escaped from the Miluo-Tuo boundary will be suppressed by them. As long as the insect race appears, they will be attacked. What we have now is better than Tai Shi's calamity. There aren't many insect race that escaped from the Miluo-Tuo boundary. When Tai Shi's calamity erupted, dozens of Big Yin insects reproduced. We couldn't stop them at all. Once the insect race erupts, it's too terrifying The first marshal had experienced Taishi's calamity before, so he knew how terrifying it was to be controlled by the insect race. They weren't strong, but their reproduction ability was terrifying. Their ability to devour was shocking. Then how did Taishi's calamity end? Lin Feng was very curious. Heroes appear in troubled times. The first marshal's eyes flashed. When everyone thought that Taishi was finished, Gu Huang stepped forward and stopped Taishi's calamity by himself. He was invincible. Taishi Gu Huang. Lin Feng was not unfamiliar with this name. Whether it was Huang Zun's investiture of the gods or the supreme god's investiture of the gods, he was always the first on the investiture of the gods. The Hongming Ocean Emperor. He's the world master? Lin Feng asked. No. The first marshal shook his head. The first marshal shook his head. He is stronger than the 5 world leaders, but no one knows where he is now. There are rumors that he might have gone into seclusion or he might have died. There hasn't been any news about him for billions of years. Perished? Lin Feng exclaimed softly. Even such a powerful cultivator can perish. Nothing is impossible in the Hongming Ocean. The first marshal brought Lin Feng through many tunnels. His hand pressed on the green light, and it flashed. The identity verification was successful. The green light in front of them gradually disappeared. Let's go in. He is inside. The first marshal's eyes were complicated. Okay. Lin Feng nodded. Romance M. Chapter 3071. The heavily injured Marshal Wuli Hongming was on the verge of death. She sat cross-legged in a red engraved formation, surrounded by Hongming origin crystals. Through the engraved formation, the concentrated energy was transferred to Marshal Wuli Hongming to heal her injuries. It was very serious. The first marshal wasn't lying. Lin Feng glanced at her and knew the extent of Marshal Wuli Hongming's injuries. It could be said that she had been rescued from the gates of hell. This was something that couldn't be faked. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk as if she sensed the presence. Marshal Wuli Hongming opened her red eyes. Seeing that it was the first marshal, she relaxed and was about to close her eyes again when she suddenly looked at Lin Feng. She was slightly puzzled. Let me introduce you. Ili. The first marshal introduced. This is Brother Lin Feng. You all met him during the Battle of Mount Qinjue in Hongming. In Miluo, to a realm, he killed dozens of big yin insect by himself and heavily injured the insectoid commander. Marshal Wuli Hongming's beautiful eyes shone slightly. She was the marshal in charge of the Battle of Mount Qinjue in Hongming. Her memory of Lin Feng was still fresh. Greetings, Marshal Wuli Hongming. Lin Feng nodded slightly. From the looks of it, Marshal Wuli Hongming couldn't see any flaws. She didn't sense anything either. Including the first marshal, the second marshal, and the other Hongming marshals had all come into close contact with Marshal Wuli Hongming, but they didn't notice anything different about her. However, her instincts told her that there was definitely something wrong with Marshal Wuli Hongming. She definitely had something to do with the destruction of the first tunnel. I won't hide it from you. Healy, Lin Feng has a special ability to sense the energy of the insectoids. He can tell if a cultivator is being controlled by the insectoids or if they are an insectoid spy, the first marshal said directly. Before you, Ho Huai, Beiming Anji, and Wudi Light had all been examined by Lin Feng and proved to be innocent. The first Grand Marshal had commanded the army for billions of years. He knew how to do things and how to speak. Hiding things would only arouse suspicion, so he might as well be direct. Bringing up the other Hongming marshals was also to prevent He Li from having any room to refuse. Otherwise, if He Li flew into a rage out of humiliation, whether or not she was an insectoid spy, the matter would become difficult to handle. All right, I understand. Marshal Wuli Hongming's voice was weak, but there was a trace of firmness in it. There was no change in his expression. The first passage was broken. I'm indeed a suspect. Rather than being suspected by everyone, why don't we do a test? Anyway, He Li, have a clear conscience. The first marshal said, it's good that you understand. In other words, whether Marshal Wuli Hongming understood or not, the first marshal didn't care. As the marshal of the army, he would definitely do what he had to do. Just like what Marshal Wuli Hongming said, Healy was a huge suspect for the destruction of the first tunnel. He turned to look at Lin Feng and waved his hand. Go test it, Lin Feng. Just do it. I trust Healy. She is the pride of the Hongmeng army. When Healy and Hongmeng Marshal heard this, they nodded slightly and smiled weakly. All right, Lin Feng didn't hesitate. His figure flashed and appeared in front of Marshal Wally Hongmeng. He looked straight at him without any fear. Sorry for the offense, Marshal Wally Hongmeng. Pa! Lin Feng pressed his palm against Marshal Wally Hongmeng's wrist. Marshal Wally Hongmeng was slightly surprised. Her beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at Lin Feng. Clearly, she was very surprised that a Yuan venerate human possessed the power of Golden Hongmeng. Don't resist. My power of Hongmeng won't hurt you. Lin Feng was directly probing through energy. It was more accurate and more dangerous. If Lin Feng had the intention to do something bad and the power of Golden Hongmeng erupted in Marshal Wally Hongmeng's body, the consequences would be unimaginable. Given Marshal Wally Hongmeng's current state, there was no doubt that he would die. All right, Marshal Wally Hongmeng replied straightforwardly. Her expression was calm, as if she wasn't afraid of being verified at all. Her calm expression made Lin Feng and the first Grand Marshal shudder. Marshal Wally Hongmeng's performance was flawless. If she was really a bug ray spy, she would definitely be panicking right now because she didn't know the first Grand Marshal's attitude. If he had already seen through her identity and sent Lin Feng to kill her, then the power of Golden Hongmeng would erupt the moment it entered her body. Killing her would be as easy as blowing off dust. However, Marshal Wally Hongmeng wasn't afraid at all. She was confident, but she was a little weak because of her severe injuries. Lin Feng controlled the power of Golden Hongmeng and circulated it throughout Marshal Wally Hongmeng's body. He stayed in her internal universe the longest. Although the first Grand Marshal had secretly probed the 8 Hongmeng Marshals before, he wasn't as meticulous as Lin Feng. Again and again, Lin Feng was serious and focused. His expression didn't change at all. Marshal Wally Hongmeng's face was a little pale and showed signs of weakness. However, she didn't do anything strange despite Lin Feng's probing. The first Grand Marshal's nerves were tense. He was afraid that Marshal Wally Hongmeng was a bug ray spy. If his life was threatened, he would immediately attack. As a commander of the military, the first Grand Marshal had high hopes for Lin Feng. In order to stop the bug race, the military couldn't do without Lin Feng. He was the most irreplaceable one. Everything was calm. Nothing happened. Time passed quickly. Lin Feng's hand left Marshal Wally Hongmeng's wrist. He bowed slightly. Sorry for the offense, Marshal Wally Hongmeng. Please rest well. Okay. Marshal Wally Hongmeng nodded slightly and smiled weakly. The first Grand Marshal looked over. Lin Feng said, Sir Marshal, her identity has been verified. There is nothing suspicious about Marshal Wally Hongmeng. Her internal universe is mature and stable. There is no other energy in it. Her soul is clean and pure. It is impossible for her to be possessed. Okay. The first Grand Marshal smiled from the bottom of his heart. Although he suspected Marshal Wally Hongmeng, he didn't want his 8 subordinates to be bug ray spies. Now that Lin Feng had verified Marshal Wally Hongmeng's innocence, it was for the best. The first Grand Marshal looked at Marshal Wally Hongmeng. It's not your fault that the first portal was destroyed. Don't blame yourself. The main responsibility is mine. Don't say that, Sir Marshal. Healy has disappointed you, Marshal Wally Hongmeng said. You didn't disappoint me. Instead, I have disappointed everyone. The first Grand Marshal sighed. He seemed to have aged a lot. His thoughts went back to the past. It was because of his mistake that he was at an irreversible disadvantage. It was a pity. He was angry and sad. No matter what, it is in the past. We have to look forward, the first Grand Marshal said seriously. If you made a mistake, use your own hands to make up for it. We still have a chance. Okay. Marshal Wally Hongmeng's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. Rest well. We will wait for you to return to the team and fight against the bug race together, the first Grand Marshal said. Yes, Sir Marshal. Chapter 3072. Lin Feng and the first Grand Marshal left the protection star wheel. What's wrong? You still look so serious? The first Grand Marshal glanced at Lin Feng and said, "It's a good thing that Healy isn't an insectoid spy. If she really is, to be honest, I find it hard to accept. If Marshal Wally Hongmeng isn't a spy, then what she said is true. Then Marshal Mosai Hongmeng is an insectoid spy." Lin Feng looked at the first Grand Marshal. "Yes." The first Grand Marshal sighed softly and shook his head. Between the two of them, one of them must be an insectoid spy. Back then, he had placed the two Hongmeng marshals in the same tunnel because if one of them was a spy, the other would discover it. This was not only double insurance, but also a check on each other. "Did you notice anything strange before?" Lin Feng asked. The first Grand Marshal thought carefully. "No, I didn't. I've been secretly observing the 8 Hongmeng marshals. Not only Mosai, but the other 7 didn't notice anything strange either." Lin Feng nodded. The results of the inspection just now were real. Marshal Wally Hongmeng's composure before the inspection and her calmness after the inspection weren't fake. There was nothing wrong with the inspection results. She was indeed Marshal Wally Hongmeng. However, the more certain she was and the calmer she was, the more confused Lin Feng became. She was too calm. However, all the evidence now proved that Marshal Wally Hongmeng was the real deal. Lin Feng had nothing to say. Furthermore, Lin Feng didn't want to rely on his intuition to make such an important conclusion. That would be unfair. Marshal Wally Hongmeng had made great contributions to the army and the Taichu. He couldn't completely deny her because of some conjectures. For now, this was all he could do. "I hope that you can still be wary of the Hongmeng marshals. Don't trust them completely," Lin Feng said. "Although you might not be happy with what I've said, you must always be on your guard. My intuition tells me that the insectoid spies are still around." "All right." The first marshal looked deeply at Lin Feng. "It's never wrong to be cautious." Lin Feng replied with a smile. He knew what the first marshal meant. The first marshal was just agreeing with him and not agreeing with him. As the marshal of an army, he had personally groomed the 8 Hongmeng marshals. Now that he had proven the innocence of the 8 Hongmeng marshals, the first marshal would continue to trust them unconditionally. If you doubt someone, don't use him. If you use someone, don't doubt him. This was human nature. Lin Feng couldn't change the first marshal's mind. Rely on yourself. Lin Feng didn't like to force people, so he wouldn't purposely force them to do something. It was best if the first marshal believed him, but if the first marshal didn't believe him, he had no other choice. But he himself didn't believe it. "Lord Marshal, do you know anything about Fanzu?" Lin Feng suddenly remembered. "Oh." The first marshal was slightly surprised. He asked curiously, "Why are you asking this?" Lin Feng said, "I won't hide it from Lord Marshal. I've always been in contact with Senior Fanzu, including at the core of the mountain. Senior Fanzu even saved my life. If it wasn't for his help, I would have died a long time ago, much less become stronger. Senior Fanzu is very concerned about the insect disaster. He personally went out during the insect disaster at Hongmeng's 1000 Perception Mountain. There's no reason why Senior Fanzu wouldn't do anything when the insect disaster broke out this time and broke through Miluo to our realm's defenses. Also, Senior Fanzu left a sliver of his consciousness in my body. Originally, I could talk to Senior Fanzu, but I haven't been able to contact Senior Fanzu for dozens of years." The first marshal was shocked and curious. He didn't expect Lin Feng to have such a close relationship with Fanzu. If he didn't mention it, he wouldn't have known. Now that he mentioned it, he was shocked. Thinking about this, the first marshal felt more at ease. From his perspective, Lin Feng was nurtured by Fanzu, so it was normal for him to be so outstanding. "I can't contact Fanzu either," said the first marshal. "I also lost contact with Army God. While I was commanding the army to stay in Miluo to our realm, something happened in Taichu." "What happened? Is it more terrifying than the insect disaster?" Lin Feng said softly. The first marshal shook his head. "I'm not sure. My main responsibility is to quell the insect disaster. However, Pang, you brought some news. Army God is moving together with Fanzu. The universe dominator limits of the various superpowers have all left Taichu." See, Lin Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. In other words, the great beings at the top of the Taichu pyramid have all left? The first marshal nodded. It's not just Taichu. The 5 world masters have all taken action. The great beings living in seclusion in Hongming Ocean have all appeared. This time, the disaster is quite terrifying. It doesn't just affect Taichu. It affects the entire Hongming Ocean. I see. Lin Feng understood now. This was news even more terrifying than the insect disaster. It wasn't just Taichu that was mobilized. It was the super great beings of the 5 origin chaotic universes and the entire Hongming Ocean. The insect disaster in Taichu was just Taichu. Even if the worst-case scenario was that the insect disaster couldn't be stopped and the Taichu was swallowed by the insect race, it would only affect Taichu. There were still the other 4 origin chaotic universes in Hongming Ocean. The great beings of Taichu could still migrate away. However, this disaster that gathered the great beings of the entire Hongming Ocean threatened the entire Hongming Ocean. If the Hongming Ocean was destroyed, then there would be nothing left. Although the insect disaster broke out, fortunately, we stopped the bleeding in time. There weren't many insects that managed to break out. As long as the superpowers of the Taichu work together, we can at least contain the insect disaster and maintain it within a bearable range, the first marshal said. Our army is in charge of the entire Miluo Tuo region. Now that the insect commander is heavily injured, it's a great opportunity. Not only can we recover the lost territory and reduce the area occupied by the insect race, but we also have hope of luring the insect commander out. As long as we can kill the insect commander, there's still hope. We need your strength, Lin Feng. Leave the insect commander to me, Lord Marshal. Lin Feng was not someone who was afraid of trouble. Although it was difficult to kill the insect commander, the more challenging it was, the more interested Lin Feng was. Moreover, Lin Feng did not think that he had no hope of killing the insect commander. Just a little more. Next time, he would definitely be able to kill the insect commander. I have a request, Lord Marshal. Lin Feng looked at the first marshal. The Taichu origin chaotic universe was guarding the star wheel. The departure of the first marshal and Lin Feng caused the military base to regain its peace. Marshal Wuli Hongming sat cross-legged in the inscription array. His dark red eyelids were raised. Although his expression was ugly and weak, his eyes were shining with tenacious willpower and ambition. He was a completely different person from before. Lin Feng, Marshal Wuli Hongming muttered softly. There was a trace of cold disdain in his eyes. If you want to verify it, I'll let you verify it. Unfortunately, you'll never be able to verify it, even if Fanzu comes. Because I am indeed Healy. Chapter 3073. Miluo Wilderness, Void Tuo Realm. It disappeared. Lin Feng's expression was calm. The original black plate was empty. There were no traces of the insectoids, nor was there any aura of the original black plate. As expected, the first marshal was calm. Lin Feng nodded. With the intelligence of the insectoid commander, he wouldn't stupidly leave the black plate here after exposing it. This was equivalent to his internal universe. Once it was destroyed, the insectoid commander's strength would be greatly damaged. He probably won't appear for a while, said Lin Feng. Treacherous moves. The insectoid commander's move is truly ruthless. Although he was an opponent, the first marshal couldn't help but admire him. He knew the price of exposing the black plate, but he still did it. Lin Feng said, otherwise, why would it attract the attention of the marshal? The black plate had a huge restriction. Once it was set, it couldn't be moved. It was like a huge castle. Once it was built, it couldn't be moved around. The advantage of doing this was that the energy of the black plate could increase infinitely. The insectoid's combat strength would increase exponentially in the black plate. The disadvantage was that once the black plate was exposed, they would be trapped. Of course, it was still possible to move the black plate away. However, it was equivalent to tearing down the castle and finding a place to rebuild it. The first marshal sighed. This is the insectoid's last stand. If the insectoid's commander wins, the insectoid's leader will enter absolute beginning. Even if the insectoid's commander sacrifices the initial big yin insect, Blackboard, it will only be a small loss. He didn't continue speaking. The first marshal knew very well that in terms of strategy, he was completely defeated by the insectoid commander. If he could seize this opportunity to defeat the insectoids, then he would be able to obtain a complete victory in this insectoid disaster. However, he failed. There was nothing to regret. He was just not as skilled as the other party. He looked at Lin Feng. The first marshal felt slightly apologetic. He knew that this opportunity was created by Lin Feng. If Lin Feng had not forced the insect tribe grand commander into a corner, the latter would not have given up on the initial big yin insect blackboard and fought with his back to the wall. Let's go to the next place. Marshal, Lin Feng said. Mi Air Glacier, Tuol Luo Palace. Ice crystals began to form one after another. It was bone-chilling cold. The powerful laws of Hongmeng maintained the order of the glacier river. His lordship is already waiting for the two of you inside. The Yao Tuo king stood outside the palace with a cold expression. Lin Feng nodded. After that, he entered with the first marshal. Within the Tuo Yuo King Hall, the demon Ta overlord's single golden eye flashed with a resplendent light. The white ice diamond imprint on his forehead was bone-chilling, powerful, and unique. Humans, I overestimated you. The Yao Ta overlord laughed coldly, his tone filled with mockery. Victory and defeat are commonplace in war. A momentary loss doesn't mean defeat. Besides, the insectoids didn't gain much of an advantage in this clash. Lin Feng was neither servile nor overbearing. The insectoid commander is heavily injured, and the insectoids have suffered heavy losses. The great yin insects are almost all gone. Is that so? The Yao Tuo overlord said nonchalantly. The first marshal looked at the Yao Tuo overlord. It's easy to add flowers to brocade, but it's difficult to provide timely assistance. The army will remember the overlord's help. This loss is due to my personal mistake. It has nothing to do with the army's strength. Oh, the Yao Tuo overlord rested his chin on his hand. Lin Feng took a step forward. We're all in the same boat. This is a great opportunity to destroy the insectoids. I hope the overlord can help us. If the insectoids have a chance to recover, the Yao Tuo overlord will also be implicated if the Taichu falls. The insectoids are vengeful. The overlord knows that. Lin Feng's last sentence caused the Yao Tuo overlord's expression to turn ugly. He knew what Lin Feng meant. It was impossible for the insectoids not to know that the Yao Tuo overlord was helping the army. They did not attack now because they were not strong enough. However, once the insectoids grew stronger, the Yao Tuo overlord would not be able to remain unaffected. If the overlord is willing to continue working with the Taichu and quell the insectoid plague in the future, not only will the entire Miluo Tuo realm belong to the Yao Tuo overlord, the army will also protect Miluo Tuo realm and fulfill their promise. The first marshal was firm. Right now, they had to put aside their prejudices and work with the Yao Tuo overlord. Quelling the insectoid plague was the top priority. The Yao Tuo overlord's eyes shone with a strange light. Lin Feng's promise and the first marshal's promise were two different things. The former was an insignificant pawn, while the latter was the commander of the army. The words of the first marshal carried a lot of weight. How do you want me to help? The Yao Tuo overlord rolled his eyes and changed his tone in the end. The first marshal looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng extended 3 fingers. We need the Yao Tuo overlord to work with us. We need to work together on 3 fronts. First, search for signs of insectoid commander and rebuild the original blackboard, the Yao Tuo overlord said coldly. Not long ago, the insectoid commander returned to the Void Tuo realm with heavy injuries. He absorbed the energy of the original blackboard to recover. Then he destroyed the blackboard and left. No one knows where he went. No clues at all. The first marshal could not help but ask. The Yao Tuo overlord's single golden eye narrowed. If you were the insectoid commander and you knew that the Yao Tuo overlord could sense your location, would you still stupidly stay in the Miluo wilderness? Don't think of the insectoid commander as a fool. The first marshal's face reddened. As the saying went, too much concern led to confusion. He wanted to capture the insectoid commander too much. Lin Feng said, then I'll have to trouble the Yao Tuo overlord to send people to search for suspicious areas. It will take a long time to rebuild the original blackboard, and it will absorb a large amount of energy during the process. There will definitely be some clues. The Yao Tuo overlord snorted coldly. I don't need you to tell me that, Lin Feng said. Then I'll wait for your good news. Second, we hope that the Yao Tuo overlord can work together and destroy all of the blackboard where the blackboard is. Although the insectoids were endless, the blackboard was a key point. They were the core strength of the insectoids, and also the backbone of their strength. Previously, the insectoids had lost a large number of blackboard because the insectoids had been killed in large numbers, which led to the insectoid commander's death. After destroying all of the blackboard, the insectoids would only have the time devouring Insect Emperor and the Universe Splitter Insect King left. The threat would be limited. Just these two alone would not be able to break through the army's defenses. If they could not stop the insectoids from multiplying, then they would suppress the insectoids' peak strength. This was the method that Lin Feng and the First Marshal had discussed. What's the third point? The Yao Tuo overlord did not comment. He did not even raise his head. Lin Feng looked straight at the Yao Tuo overlord. I hope that the Yao Tuo overlord can control the power of the glacier and use the glacier tide to deal with the insectoids. This way, not only can we kill a large number of insectoids, but we can also freeze the Milieu Plateau's energy, making it more difficult for the insectoids to absorb energy. This way, the energy absorption characteristics will be more obvious, especially the initial big yin insect blackboard. Mobile version update website. Chapter 3074. After leaving the Tuo Luo royal palace, the First Marshal let out a long sigh. He wasn't afraid of Lord Yao Tuo, but as the marshal of an army, he had too much pressure on his shoulders. He had to worry about personal gains and losses, which was why it was hard for him to maintain a stable attitude when negotiating with the Yao Tuo clan. It was easy for him to be led by the nose by Lord Yao Tuo. It's all thanks to you, Lin Feng, the First Marshal said gratefully. It's nothing. Lin Feng had already negotiated with Lord Yao Tuo once, so it was easy for him to negotiate again. Lord Yao Tuo seemed unruly, but he actually cared about the Yao Tuo clan. He wasn't unreasonable. He also knew what kind of situation the Yao Tuo clan was facing and what kind of decision was best for them. Cooperating with the insectoids was impossible. It was like asking a tiger for its skin. Lord Yao Tuo putting on airs in front of the First Marshal was just to get more benefits for the Yao Tuo clan. Lin Feng could understand this. As the leader of a clan, there was nothing wrong with Lord Yao Tuo doing this. Do you think Lord Yao Tuo will agree? The First Marshal was still worried. After Lin Feng listed the 3 conditions, Lord Yao Tuo didn't reply. He only sent the 2 of them out of the Tuo Luo royal palace and said that he needed time to consider. Lin Feng smiled. Marshal, you're too nervous. We're already in the same boat as the Yao Tuo clan. Neither of us can escape. If they don't agree, we'll both suffer great losses, and neither of us will benefit. They're putting on airs now because they want better conditions and benefits. The First Marshal frowned slightly. Do we need to give in? No. Lin Feng said firmly, we can't give in at all. We need the Yao Tuo clan to cooperate with us as much as possible in these 3 areas. Only then can we achieve the greatest effect, but Lin Feng pondered for a moment. If the conditions permit, it's actually acceptable to give the Yao Tuo clan better materials and other conditions. After all, they're grasping the time we need right now. For us, exchanging materials for faster help from the Yao Tuo clan is just a small benefit. All right, that shouldn't be a problem, the First Marshal said. The army was rich and overbearing, so they naturally did not care about the small amount of material gifts. Just as Lin Feng had said, the best solution for the Taichu and the military was to fight for more time and cooperate as soon as possible. Material things were nothing. Moreover, you want the entire Yao Tuo clan to help you. If you don't give them anything, isn't that a little too stingy? Lin Feng and the First Grand Marshal swept through the Milieu wilderness in search of clues while waiting for Yao Tuo's reply. Sure enough, not long after the first negotiation, the Yao Tuo overlord started the second negotiation, and the 2 sides began a tug-of-war. According to Lin Feng, The first marshal did not give in on the three aspects of the cooperation, but promised to give the Yao Tuo tribe better treatment in terms of material conditions and other aspects. After a few rounds of negotiations, the Yao Tuo leader finally relented. After all, it wouldn't do them any good to drag this out. Not only would the Taichu army have to expend more effort to strengthen the insectoids, but the Yao Tuo tribe, as their allies, would also have to contribute more. The Yao Tuo overlord knew very well that he could not escape from the Taichu and stay out of harm's way. They had to cooperate sooner or later, so there was no need to drag this out. Moreover, the army's sincerity was not bad. They increased the material conditions time and time again, benefiting the Yao Tuo tribe greatly. Sincerity could move metal and stone. After a few rounds of negotiations, the army and the Yao Tuo tribe formed an official alliance. They no longer had to be secretive. They worked on three aspects at the same time, suppressing the insectoids in all aspects. The Ice River Tide, in particular, was the insectoid's nightmare. The power of nature was quite terrifying. The Ice River energy was endless. Once the Ice River Tide erupted, even the universe-devouring insect emperors and universe-splitter insect kings would find it hard to resist. To the insectoids, the Ice River energy was like poisonous food. It was not something they could easily absorb. The bone-chilling cold would freeze an insectoid to death if they touched it a little. To the Yao Tuo tribe, triggering the Ice River Tide was very easy. They were the children of the Miluo Ice River, so they could perfectly control the Miluo Ice River. The Ice River energy would turn into a tide to kill the insectoids, and then return to the Miluo Ice River from various parts of the Miluo Tuo territory. Actually, the Miluo Ice River's loss was negligible. Even if there was some loss, it could still recover after a long time. However, it was not so easy for the insectoids to recover. No matter what, the insectoids still needed to absorb energy to breed. Especially the high-level insectoids. They needed even more energy to breed. What a powerful Ice River Tide. The first marshal was full of praise. He revealed a rare smile. In the recent clashes, the army had completely gained the upper hand. With the cooperation of the Yao Tuo tribe, the insectoids had suffered countless casualties. He had never thought that there would be such a method. He was full of admiration for Lin Feng. I only found out by coincidence. Lin Feng smiled. The first marshal was in charge of the overall situation, so he did not know. However, Lin Feng had entered deep into the Miluo Tuo territory and personally experienced the power of the Ice River Tide. The insectoids kept a respectful distance from the Miluo Ice River, not because they were allied with the Yao Tuo tribe, but because they were afraid of the Ice River energy. Unless they were as strong as the big yin insect, the Ice River energy was very destructive to the insectoids. What a coincidence. The first marshal patted Lin Feng's shoulder and sighed. It's all thanks to you this time. He swept his gaze across the Miluo Tuo territory. It was cold everywhere. Even the Hongmeng energy seemed to have frozen. The eruption of the Ice River Tide caused the entire Miluo Tuo territory to change drastically. It was a nightmare for the insectoids. The difficulty for them to absorb energy increased tenfold. Unfortunately, there is still no news of the insectoid commander. Lin Feng felt helpless. The insectoid commander hid very well. Until now, there were no clues. It was as if he had completely disappeared. It's okay. He will appear eventually. The first marshal's eyes were clear. Beimeng Anji, Hua Huai, Udi Otter, and Black Python, under the leadership of the Yao Tuo king, wiped out the big yin insect and blackboard. The core of the insectoids suffered great losses. Together with the Ice River Tide, the insectoids, who were already weak after the war, have nowhere to run. I don't believe that the insectoid commander can hide forever. Oof. At this moment, the first marshal saw hope for the first time. I'm just afraid that if he appears, we might not be able to kill him. Previously, he couldn't kill the insectoid commander even when he joined forces with the second marshal. Would the first marshal be able to do it? Lin Feng still wasn't confident. Now that a great calamity had happened in the Hongmeng Sea, Fan Zhu, the war god, and the other top powerhouses of the Taichu pyramid had all left. There wasn't anyone who had full confidence in killing the insectoid commander. They could only rely on themselves. Lin Feng already had an idea. Now that the situation has stabilized, I want to go back to the Taichu first marshal, Lin Feng said. Where are you going? The first marshal smiled. Lin Feng nodded. This was the request he had made to the first marshal. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 3075. Taichu Origin Chaos Universe, Elementary Origin Realm. This was one of the core areas of the Taichu Origin Chaos Universe. It was guarded by an army, and only cultivators who had made great contributions to the Taichu could enter. Taichu generals and Hongmeng marshals were no exception. Elementary Origin Realm, Primal Origin Realm, Prime Origin Realm, Ultimate Origin Realm, and Easy Origin Realm. The Hongmeng Sea's 5 origin realms were located within the 5 Origin Chaos Universe. It was where the laws of Hongmeng were the strongest. The Hongmeng Sea was a stable dimensional world. The Chaos Universe had complete and stable laws of the universe. The Hongmeng Sea also had laws of the universe of the Hongmeng Sea. It was a cycle that maintained the essence of Hongmeng, forming a stable world. The 5 origin realms were the connection and evolution points of all Hongmeng laws. The laws of primordial chaos did not have a beginning or end. There were ups and downs, highs and lows, evolutions and transformations, connections and divisions. All of these changes and transitions existed within the 5 origin realms. The origin realm itself was extremely dangerous. This was because they were the laws of Hongmeng. Even level 1 Hongmeng laws could kill powerful existences because they were innate. As for level 5 and level 6 Hongmeng laws, they could kill universe rulers. The 5 origin realms were the best places to comprehend the laws of Hongmeng. They were also the most terrifying places of danger. Countless powerful existences and universe rulers had fallen there. There were even world lords had fallen there. Brother Lin Feng, remember not to get too close to the primordial realm after entering the origin realm. Many universe rulers have fallen because they want to break through the shackles and observe the primordial realm bit by bit. They have even entered the primordial realm, warned Taichu generals. The marshal has already told me, said Lin Feng with a smile. The Hongmeng realm was a natural boundary created by the evolution of the Hongmeng nomological laws. It was just like the area covered by the explosion. Because of the evolution of the nomological laws, one could gain a deeper understanding of it at close range. The closer one was to the Hongmeng realm, the more intense the understanding would be. Therefore, cultivators would often unconsciously approach it. Many cultivators were only stuck at a small node when it came to comprehending the Hongmeng nomological laws. They only needed to break through that shackle, and they would be able to comprehend it to perfection. In fact, some of them had already reached the Sciention perfection stage. In order to comprehend the Sciention perfection stage, they had to completely enter the primordial realm. Hongmeng's laws had boundaries. However, there was no barrier to increase his strength. The Taichu general smiled bitterly. Every great being and universe master who entered would be warned by the army again and again, but many still died in the primordial realm. Brother Lin Feng, don't make the same mistake. Lin Feng smiled. You are also a master of the universe. You should know why they died. The Taichu general sighed softly. That's right. How could he not understand? Sometimes, people just wanted to get lucky. Getting close to the primordial realm did not mean that they would die. It was just a possibility. Therefore, many universe masters would take the risk. Compared to the breakthrough between life and death, getting close to the primordial realm was nothing. Don't worry, I will do my best. Lin Feng and the Taichu general could be considered old friends. Back then, the Taichu general had sent the Taichu king and the 13th Legion to recruit Lin Feng, causing a huge blunder. After the misunderstanding was resolved, the Taichu general and Lin Feng became friends. They had interacted at the Thousand Perception Mountain in Hongmeng. After entering the Milieu Tuo realm, they had kept in touch. This time, the first Grand Marshal had sent the Taichu general to bring Lin Feng into the primordial realm. The primordial realm was an important place guarded by the army. Even the 5 superpowers had a limit on the number of people who could enter, and they had to be guaranteed by an expert or a faction. Once the balance of the primordial realm was broken, it would affect the primordial chaos universe and even the Hongmeng Sea. Lin Feng had entered the primordial realm on the recommendation of the army. The first Grand Marshal was the guarantor, but he would not take up the quota of the army. This was because Lin Feng had contributed to quelling the insect plague at the 1,000 Perception Mountain in Hongmeng. Although he did not belong to the 5 superpowers, he could still enter. As for Lin Feng, he had contributed even more in the Miluo Tor realm. This had to be verified by the 5 superpowers, so it was impossible to confirm it. However, this was not important because Lin Feng only wanted to enter the primordial realm. He did not want to enter the other 4 primordial realms. If Lin Feng wanted to enter the Grand Simplicity, Grand Plainness, Tai Chi, or any of the other primordial realms, just his contribution to the 1,000 Perception Mountain in Hongmeng would not be enough. We're here. The Taichu Grand Marshal led Lin Feng through one teleportation point after another. Not only were they hidden, but they were also heavily guarded by soldiers who checked the credentials of the army. Afterward, they entered a double-layered whirlpool that resembled a white hole. The aura suddenly changed, giving off a refreshing feeling. The powerful ripples of the laws of Hongmeng, the boundless emptiness, and the grandeur of nature. The majestic laws of Hongmeng could be sensed everywhere. They were like dancing fairies. Every change in the flow of air and energy contained the clear laws of Hongmeng. Even powerful existences could clearly sense the laws of Hongmeng, so Lin Feng could sense them even more clearly. Not only was Lin Feng's level of existence higher, but his internal universe was also much more perfect. He also had the incarnation of the Mountain Core world. As a mental cultivator, his abilities were well-rounded, so he could sense the laws of Hongmeng more efficiently. Lin Feng lightly nodded. His eyes flickered as he looked around, adapting to this new environment. He had never been to the elementary source realm before. Seeing once was better than hearing 100 times. Sorry for troubling you, Baruta, to come all the way here. Lin Feng was recommended by the army, so the army had to send a Taichu Grand Marshal to bring him over to prove his identity. The soldiers guarding the elementary source realm only recognized the credentials and not the person. It's a small matter. The Taichu Grand Marshal smiled. Compared to what you did in the Miluo Tor realm, Lin Feng, I'm just doing my best. The identity of a Taichu Grand Marshal is only useful at times like this. There was a hint of bitterness in his words. Baruta Taichu Grand Marshal's loneliness was evident in his words. Whether it was the Hongmeng 1,000 Perception Mountain or the Miluo Tor realm, although he was the ruler of the universe, he was powerless against the insectoids. It was not just him. All of the Taichu Grand Marshals were the same. The insectoids had completely led the Miluo Tor realm by the nose. If it were not for Lin Feng, it was hard to imagine how bad the situation would have been. Without your constant defense, how could the current Taichu exist? Brother Baruta, don't belittle yourself. Lin Feng could hear the discomfort in his heart and comforted him. I'm fine. The Taichu Grand Marshal looked at Lin Feng. I'm sincere. I don't feel any jealousy, only gratitude. Brother Lin Feng, be careful in the elementary source realm. For the army, for the Taichu, come back to the Miluo Tor realm as soon as possible and lead us to quell the insectoid plague. I promise you, Lin Feng replied resolutely. The reason he had come to the elementary source realm was to defeat the commander of the insectoids and quell the insectoid plague. I'll wait for you. Wait for me. Their eyes met. Nothing needed to be said. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin. Chapter 3076. Lin Feng had arrived at the elementary source realm to quell the insect plague. Although this place was dangerous, it was one of the places where one could comprehend the primordial laws and improve one's strength the fastest. Lin Feng was improving in all aspects at the same time, and his foundations were especially heaven-defying. Only his comprehension of the laws were improving rather slowly. Lin Feng had requested the first marshal to enter the elementary source realm. To do a good job, one must first sharpen their tools. Lin Feng's tool was the Mountain Core World Avatar. It was the treasure he relied on the most in battle. It was irreplaceable in both offense and defense, including its ability to resist the enemy's internal universe. There were two aspects to perfectly fusing with the Mountain Core World Avatar. Lin Feng had achieved the first aspect. Not only had he refined it, but his body had also fused with the Mountain Core World Avatar. He had completely devoured the Mountain Core's consciousness. Lin Feng could unleash the Mountain Core World Avatar's full potential. This was something that even Ancestor Fan could not do. On the other hand, Lin Feng's comprehension of laws was not strong. He had only reached the greater mastery of the seventh order Hongmeng Law of Great Destruction. He had only reached the greater mastery by using the large world avatar. He had not truly reached the greater mastery. His comprehension of the sixth order Hongmeng Law of Great Destruction went smoothly. Even without using the small world avatar, he had reached the greater mastery. With the small world avatar, he could even reach the innate level, comparable to the seventh order Hongmeng Law of Great Destruction. However, there were 1,888 Hongmeng Laws of Great Destruction and 1,888 small world avatars. Lin Feng could only use about 20 of them. Every time he comprehended a law of great destruction, he would be able to use a small world avatar. The small world avatar would accumulate Hongmeng energy, but it was limited. Of the 20 small world avatars, Lin Feng could only use a single-digit number. In the outside world, he could directly comprehend the law of great destruction through the mysterious inscriptions on his small world avatar. He was at the greater mastery stage, but the efficiency was lacking. To comprehend all 1,888 Hongmeng laws of great destruction one by one would require at least a few hundred eras. Lin Feng estimated that no matter how strong his comprehension was or how good his condition was, it would probably take him 2,300 eras. Comprehending the Great Calamity would take an even more terrifying amount of time. Under normal circumstances, Lin Feng wouldn't have minded staying at the Yuan Venerate level for a while longer. However, every second mattered now. The Zerg Calamity was about to erupt, and the sooner the Zerg race commander was killed, the better. Lin Feng thirsted for strength. Other than the insect disaster, Lin Feng was also curious about the second marshal's message. He paid close attention to it. It was unknown what the great calamity that could affect the entire Hongmeng Sea, such as Fan Zhu and the war god at the top of the pyramid. Currently, the strongest person in the Taichu who could fight against the insectoid commander was the first Grand Marshal. He was not completely confident. Even if Lin Feng was included, it would still be the same. Furthermore, the first Marshal still had to guard the entrance of the Milieu Tuo realm and control the entire army. He was the commander of the army and couldn't always be at the front. This time, because he had taken a risk to go deep into the Milieu Tuo realm, he had already paid a huge price. As the vanguard, the second Marshal was more than enough to be a general. However, as the commander-in-chief, he had many shortcomings. He could only rely on himself to kill the insectoid commander. First, I need to find an annihilated primordial realm. Lin Feng traveled through the nascent source realm. He was still very careful since it was his first time here. After all, this was an unfamiliar and powerful region. Even world lords had fallen here before. What did that mean? In other words, even someone as strong as Fan Zhu could be devoured by the Hongmeng laws. Fan Zhu is proficient in two Hongmeng laws. One is the level 8 Hongmeng law, Order, and the other is the level 9 Hongmeng law, Eternity. The strength of a world lord is fixed at the level 9 Hongmeng law. If he encounters a level 9 post-celestial Hongmeng law, it is indeed possible for him to be killed. If a level 9 Hongmeng law met a level 9 post-celestial Hongmeng law at perfection, there would be a difference of one level. However, this was only the worst situation that he would encounter by chance. For a world lord like Fan Zhu, even if he faced a level 9 post-celestial Hongmeng law, he would at most be injured. With my current strength and the Great World Avatar's defense, as long as I stay away from level 8 Hongmeng Law and above, I won't be in too much danger. Normally, I won't encounter it. Of the 5 great origin realms, the Hongmeng Law was stronger the deeper one went. Level 8 and level 9 Hongmeng Law were in the deepest part of the origin realms. If one did not deliberately search for the primordial realms, it would be difficult to encounter them. Lin Feng would not take the risk to comprehend a level 8 Hongmeng Law, although he was fully qualified to do so. With his strength at the pinnacle of universe dominators, he could easily comprehend a level 8 Hongmeng Law outside the primordial realms of level 8 Hongmeng Law. With Lin Feng's comprehension ability, there was hope. However, comprehending was easy, but reaching great perfection was difficult, and reaching Xiantian was even more difficult. After comprehending 1,888 types of destruction, the 1,888 small world avatars, and the inexhaustible energy, I have more than enough to fight an ordinary battle. After adapting to the environment of the elementary origin realm, Lin Feng's speed gradually increased. Combining the comprehension of destruction with the golden engravings of the Great World Avatar, I can directly comprehend great destruction. This is much faster than just comprehending great destruction alone. I can also comprehend Xiantian Great Destruction, whose power is equivalent to Great Perfection Level 8 Hongmeng Law. Before entering the elementary origin realm, Lin Feng had already made a comprehensive plan. The Yuan Venerate was still a shackle. Before his internal universe fully matured, there was a limit to how much he could improve in all aspects, especially in terms of the basics. No matter how much he accumulated, he might not be able to kill the bug race commander. However, the Hongmeng Law was different. With the assistance of the Mountain Core Avatar, as long as he could comprehend Xiantian Great Destruction, his power would be equivalent to Great Perfection Level 8 Hongmeng Law, which was equivalent to an attack at the limit of a universe dominator. If he was one level higher, he could definitely kill the bug race commander. After exchanging blows with the bug race commander, Lin Feng was very clear about his opponent's strength. Furthermore, this was something he could completely achieve. At the elementary origin realm, he could increase his speed and efficiency to the highest level. There are many universe dominators. Along the way, Lin Feng had already seen many. They were all universe dominators from different superpowers. Although this place was guarded by an army, it wasn't unique to the army. Daoyin Palace, Sky Swamp Alliance, Geo Group, Taichu Inquisition. There were even some powerhouses like him who didn't belong to any superpower. They might even be disciples of some hidden powerhouse. These universe dominators were all the same. They were either floating in the void, sitting on lotus seats, high platforms, or other treasures. Some had even taken out their palaces and Hongmeng source items to comprehend and cultivate within. No one disturbed anyone else. This was a place to focus on one's own cultivation. The cultivation environment was pretty good. There are more almighties. This was the first time Lin Feng had seen an almighty. This almighty also sensed Lin Feng and turned to look at Lin Feng curiously. Both of them were a little surprised. Lin Feng was surprised that an almighty would dare to enter the elementary origin realm, and the almighty was surprised that he was still in the elementary origin realm. He could actually see a Yuan Venerate. Mobile version update website. Chapter 3077. Lin Feng, the Almighty of the Heavenly Swamp Alliance, reacted immediately. Although powerful existences could enter the lower origin realm, the 5 supreme organizations had an unwritten rule that only rulers of the universe were allowed to enter. There is only one person who could reach the level of a universe ruler as a Yuan Venerate. The invincible newcomer who had defeated Huang Zun and the divine venerates investiture of the gods. Lin Feng, Senior Lin Feng, the Almighty of the Heavenly Swamp Alliance, chased after him excitedly. In the Heavenly Swamp Alliance, the talented newcomers not only looked up to Lin Feng as a role model, but they also respected Lin Feng very much. It wasn't just the Heavenly Swamp Alliance. All the newcomers of the Taichu were the same. Lin Feng, who had left a deep mark on the investiture of the gods, had already become a hero of the Taichu and an idol of the younger generation. Although Lin Feng was young, he was more than qualified to be a senior. "Hello." Lin Feng stopped and greeted him with a smile. "It's really Senior Lin Feng. Wow, I'm so lucky." The Almighty of the Heavenly Swamp Alliance was a special life form. He had a bald head, 2 round ears, a transparent and smooth body, and a slightly bulging abdomen with a long tail. "I am Yu Days from the Heavenly Swamp Alliance, ranked 11th on the Taichu's Yuan Venerate list." The Almighty Yu Days placed his smooth arms by his side and bowed. "Please take care of me, Senior Lin Feng. You don't have to be so polite." Lin Feng laughed involuntarily, as he was also overwhelmed by the favor. Of course. Yu Dace's face was as white as jade. His smooth palm grabbed Lin Feng's hand as his body trembled slightly. "Senior Lin Feng, you are the idol of our generation of cultivators. You are our pride. You defeated Huang Zun's investiture of the gods and the divine venerate's investiture of the gods. No one in the Taichu can compare to you. Even the 5 great realms are far inferior to you when they are at your level. I just had some fortuitous encounters." Lin Feng smiled modestly, unable to resist Yu Dace's enthusiasm. "If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving." Yu Dace wasn't willing to let Lin Feng leave. Lin Feng is origin is quite large. Searching is realm is primal realm. Lin Feng stopped. Tao of Class 6 Hongmeng Law, Destruction? Yu Dace's eyes lit up. He gently shook his head, searching through his memories. Suddenly, a light flashed through his eyes. "Senior, please follow me." Swish! Yu Dace flew off. How lucky! Lin Feng followed. With Yu Dace leading the way, they saved a lot of time. They passed through primal realm after primal realm. Countless Hongmeng laws brushed past them. Lin Feng could sense many of them. Lin Feng's attainments in the Tao of Hongmeng were not bad. Humans were good at comprehending. Lin Feng had first cultivated the 9 heavens of light and darkness, the laws of the universe. At the origin realm, the senses of all Hongmeng laws would increase by 100 times at the very least. It was not strange that Lin Feng could clearly sense the Hongmeng laws. However, Lin Feng's ambitions did not lie there. Got it. From afar, Lin Feng could already sense the fluctuations of Hongmeng laws. That was a destructive power, a violent and chaotic attack. As Yu Dace slowly approached, Lin Feng quickly saw the destruction primal realm. Sizzle. Sizzle. The destruction Hongmeng laws had a powerful attack. Violent explosions occurred at the edge of the primal realm. The void seemed to be annihilated, destroyed, and shattered continuously. Everything seemed to be heading towards destruction. The primal realm was about the size of dozens of stars. Every energy fluctuation brought about a profound annihilation. The terrifying energy transmitted could be felt just by looking at it from afar. The destruction Hongmeng laws were Hongmeng laws that focused on offense. Although it was only Class 6, its power at the origin realm might be stronger than some Class 7 Hongmeng laws. Senior Lin Feng, please do not get too close to the destruction primal realm. The attacks of the destruction Hongmeng laws have a sputtering effect. If you get too close, you will be easily enveloped. Senior is a Yuan Venerate. No matter how high your cultivation base is, your body will still be weaker. As for entering the primal realm, Senior Lin Feng, please don't try. The 1,888 types of annihilation condensed in the destruction primal realm are extremely powerful. The center of the explosion is even more terrifying. No matter how strong Senior Lin Feng is, if you accidentally enter the primal realm, I'm afraid, Yu Dace advised with concern. He knew that Lin Feng was strong, much stronger than him. However, Lin Feng had just entered the primal realm after all and was unfamiliar with many places. Moreover, he knew that Senior Lin Feng was fearless, confident, and powerful. It was very likely that he would not hesitate to approach the primal realm to comprehend the Hongmeng laws. If that happened, it would be very dangerous. After all, this was a place of early origin realm cultivators. Many universe rulers had died here, and even world masters had died here in history. The slightest carelessness could lead to the destruction of both body and soul. I understand. Thank you. Lin Feng smiled and nodded at Eudace. He could feel that Eudace was sincerely concerned about him. Just like the Taichu generals of Borea Tower, this kind of concern made him feel very comfortable. However, he did not plan on getting too close to the primal realm and standing under a dangerous wall. Combined with the dark red engravings on the body of Small World Esper, Lin Feng could clearly sense the Hongmeng laws of annihilation at the origin realm without even needing to get close to the primal realm. The primal realm's Hongmeng laws of annihilation only played a supporting role. The engravings on the body of Small World Esper allowed him to directly comprehend the Hongmeng laws of annihilation. However, it was like a secret technique that only had words. If one wanted to thoroughly analyze and comprehend it, it would not be as good as a secret technique with pictures and explanations. With the engravings as his main focus and the energy interpretation of the destruction primal realm, Lin Feng was able to comprehend the Hongmeng laws of annihilation with half the effort. As soon as he arrived, Lin Feng entered a state of comprehension. Although Eudace was beside him, this was the origin realm, and killing was strictly prohibited. Fighting would affect the connection and evolution of the Hongmeng laws. Whoever dared to fight here would be wanted by the entire Taichu and killed without mercy. This was the rule set by the 5 superpowers. Moreover, Eudace's strength was far inferior to Lin Feng's. Senior Lin Feng is really amazing. He entered a state of meditation with just a glance. Eudace was full of admiration. His eyes shone brightly. As expected of my idol, he comprehended the 6th order Hongmeng laws just like that. I will also comprehend the law of annihilation with Senior Lin Feng. Eudace also followed in Lin Feng's footsteps to comprehend the Hongmeng laws of annihilation. In any case, he originally planned to find a 6th order Hongmeng law to comprehend, but he could not decide. Since Senior Lin Feng chose this, then he would also choose this. That was definitely right. Mobile version update website. Chapter 3078. The bug calamity had erupted. The loss of the army at the entrance of Miluo to realm allowed the bug race to find a breakthrough point. After leaving Miluo to realm, the bug race was no longer restricted. Many universe-devouring bug emperors and universe-splitting bug kings appeared outside of Miluo to realm, eating the life in the Hongmeng Ocean. However, with the 4 superpowers working together, their strength was not to be underestimated. Although they did not use all their strength, the 4 superpowers' strength had already exceeded the army at the entrance of Miluo to realm. They knew that if they did not kill these bugs, the consequences would be dire. With Miluo to realm as the center, the Heavenly Swamp Alliance was in charge of the east, the Zhou Group was in charge of the south, the Taichu Inquisition was in charge of the west, and the Daoyin Palace was in charge of the north. Scoff! The universe-devouring bug emperor is only SOSO. That's right, the universe-splitting bug king is too weak. So what if we let them escape? They will still be killed by us. How can a mere bug race fight against us Taichu experts? The 4 superpowers were filled with confidence. After a few consecutive victories, they were even more confident in killing the bug race. They slowly shrunk the encirclement, killing the bug race inch by inch, obtaining great results. Compared to the momentum of the 4 superpowers, at the entrance of Miluo to realm, the army's progress was much slower. However, under the command of the first marshal, the army steadily killed the bug race in Miluo to realm. The Yaotatuo race was the main force to kill the ordinary Zergs, while the Hongmeng army cooperated with them to protect them. The Glacier Tide special effect allowed the Zergs to be killed in an area. The effect was shocking, killing strong bugs, with the Taichu and Hongmeng marshals as the main force. The Yao Tuo king led the search for the Super Blackboard. Wherever the Big Yin bug went, it was destroyed. Using both methods, the army steadily increased their advantage. The bug race probably did not expect that the Miluo Tuo realm they chose would be suppressed by the natives of Miluo Tuo realm. However, milieu of a realm was huge, and the bug race had been there for a long time. To uproot the bug race was not something that could be done in a day. There was also a huge variable, the commander of the bug race. He's really patient. He didn't even reveal any clues. The first marshal was guarding the entrance. Together with Black Python Hong Ming, who had just recovered from his injuries, they were the main defensive force. Bei Ming and Ji, Udi Li Otter, and Hong Ming were led by the second Grand Marshal as the main force to clear out the insectoids. The division of labor was very clear. After the battle at the entrance of the milieu to realm, although the insectoids had won, their vitality had been greatly damaged, and they were unable to gather enough troops to attack the entrance. Therefore, there was no need for too many powerhouses to defend at this time. It was enough to have the first Grand Marshal and the Black Python Grand Marshal. Reporting to the Marshal, the four superpowers have sent news of victory. Black Python Marshal Hong Ming revealed a smile. This was the third victory report he had received recently. Every time, it was at a point where countless insectoids had been killed and the encirclement area had been greatly reduced. All right, the first Supreme Marshal nodded, but sighed deeply. They should have come to their senses earlier and sent out their troops earlier. Otherwise, they wouldn't have ended up like this. Previously, the four superpowers didn't do anything. Even the Heavenly Swamp Alliance and Dao Yin Palace only sent universe masters into the milieu wilderness. The four superpowers didn't send out any powerful beings. Why? Because powerful beings were the foundation of every superpower. Sending them into the milieu to realm to fight the insectoids would result in great losses. As for universe masters, the losses would be small. Many universe masters entered voluntarily, such as Mu Shan and Fu Zhuoboran. It shouldn't be too late now, right? Black Python Marshal Hong Ming asked. Maybe. The first marshal muttered to himself. He frowned slightly and looked into the distance. Not too late. No, it was already too late. However, the first Supreme Marshal didn't want to say it, in case it affected the morale of the troops. What was the use of more news now? After entering the Taichu realm, the insectoids had completely spread out. Not to mention the four superpowers. Even the 10 superpowers couldn't do anything. The insectoid disaster had already erupted, and no matter how hard they tried to suppress it, it was just mending the pen after the sheep had been lost. Also, it couldn't be mended. Indeed, the four superpowers had killed many insectoids, but during this period of time, the insectoids could breed even more. The insectoids were completely scattered, and the four superpowers didn't have enough great beings to suppress them. They couldn't be killed. This was the most terrifying thing about the insectoids. You could kill them, but you couldn't kill them all. After personally witnessing Taishu's disaster, the first Supreme Marshal knew how terrifying the insectoids were. This was a race that wasn't very strong individually, but as a whole, they were abnormally strong. As long as they were given a chance, they could devour the entire Taichu realm and even the entire Hongmeng Sea. I hope the four superpowers can stall for more time. The first Supreme Marshal pursed his lips. He didn't have any good ideas at this moment. The only thing he could do was stall for time and wait for Fan Zhu and the military god to return to take charge of the situation. Also, he had to search for the insectoid commander's whereabouts. He was the key to everything. I wonder how Lin Feng is doing now. The first Supreme Marshal was very worried about Lin Feng. In the current war, Lin Feng's role was irreplaceable. He was brave and smart, and his name as the nemesis of the insectoids wasn't for nothing. With him around, the first Supreme Marshal was very assured. As long as Lin Feng made a move, anything that was impossible could be easily solved. I hope he returns soon. The first Supreme Marshal thought to himself. Elementary origin. Outside the annihilation primordial boundary, Lin Feng had been meditating for the 33rd era. He didn't move at all, comprehending outside the annihilation primordial boundary. Yuta was both impressed and curious about his patience. In his opinion, since Senior Lin Feng could defeat Huang Zun's investiture of the gods and ultimate gods, his realm and comprehension must be heaven-defying. However, that didn't seem to be the case. In the 33rd era, Yu Da's comprehension of the Hongming laws of annihilation had reached great perfection. Lin Feng should have been faster than him, but Senior Lin Feng hadn't moved at all. It didn't seem like he had reached great perfection. Even if Senior Lin Feng wanted to comprehend great perfection, he should have moved when he comprehended great perfection. Yuda couldn't figure it out. In the 33rd era, comprehending great perfection of level 6 Hongmeng laws of annihilation was a heaven-defying matter. Even the ruler of the universe might not be able to do it. However, in Yu Da's opinion, it would be very strange if Lin Feng couldn't do it. No, it would be very strange. What is Senior Lin Feng doing? What's the situation now? Yuda was very curious. He stared at Lin Feng's every move. Suddenly, he noticed that Lin Feng's aura had changed. Yu Da's eyes immediately lit up. Was he about to end his meditation? What realm had Senior Lin Feng comprehended to? Great perfection? Yuda wouldn't be surprised even if Lin Feng had comprehended great perfection, because Senior Lin Feng was his idol, the most respected expert. He was the most heaven-defying super genius of the Taichu, a monstrous monster. What? Suddenly, Yu Da's eyes widened in shock. Mobile version update website. Chapter 3079. To Yu Da's utter surprise, as soon as Lin Feng finished his meditation, he didn't hesitate in the slightest to dash towards the expanse obliteration dimension. His speed was so swift that Yu Dace was utterly unable to react to it, and in merely an instant, Lin Feng had arrived outside the expanse obliteration dimension. Don't, Senior Lin Feng. Before Yu Da could finish his words, Lin Feng had already disappeared. He didn't seem to care about the annihilation primordial domain's shocking energy explosion and the shattered space around it. Shua! Yuda rushed forward by reflex. Suddenly, his head rumbled, and the annihilation primordial domain let out a violent explosion. The terrifying airflow blew Yuda away. Even though he was wearing a Dominator suit, Yuda was still slightly injured. The power was too strong. Zilu. The annihilation primordial realm was like an enormous, enraged star. It emanated a terrifying amount of energy which came from within the annihilation primordial realm. It was because an anomaly had occurred within the annihilation primordial realm, which had disrupted the stable evolution and transmission of the primordial laws. It's over. Yuda's expression was ugly. He didn't care about his injuries. He stared straight at the annihilation primordial domain, hoping to see Senior Lin Feng's figure. However, all he saw was the annihilation Hongmeng laws. Lin Feng had an extremely high status in Yu Da's heart. He was the role model of the Taichu's younger generation. Now that he saw Lin Feng enter the annihilation primordial domain with his own eyes, Yu Da was instantly heartbroken. Countless universe rulers had fallen at the elementary origin level, and most of them had died because they were close to the primordial domain. As for entering the primordial domain, it was almost certain death. It was equivalent to enduring the powerful attacks of the Hongmeng laws, and they were endless. You decide. He was sad, but there was nothing he could do. He had warned Senior Lin Feng and had been by his side for the past 33 years. He was afraid that if Senior Lin Feng wanted to enter the annihilation primordial domain, he could persuade him. However, the result was the same. He couldn't stop him. Senior Lin Feng was too confident. Senior Lin Feng must be trying to comprehend the true essence of Hongmeng law of annihilation at a close distance and reach the Xiantian full circle realm. Yu Dace vaguely guessed that since he had reached the great circle of enlightenment in the 33rd era, Senior Lin Feng must have reached the great circle as well. It was easy to reach great perfection, but extremely difficult to reach Xiantian great perfection. Even at the early origin realm, it was still very difficult. There's still hope. Senior Lin Feng was able to sweep through the god list and enter the annihilation primordial realm without fear. He must have some trump cards. He'll be fine. It'll be fine. At this point, Yu Dace could only console himself like this. He stared fixedly at the extraordinarily tyrannical annihilation primordial realm, waiting somewhat numbly for a miracle to occur. He wanted to see that legendary figure again. Annihilation primordial realm. Lin Feng floated in the air with a calm expression. It's just as I thought. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he flew through the chaotic space filled with violent energy. There was shocking Hongmeng law of annihilation everywhere. The power of a rank 6 Xiantian full circle was comparable to a rank 7 Hongmeng law of annihilation attack. Moreover, the energy here was endless and cycled endlessly. It was equivalent to a mountain core attacking again and again. However, the current Lin Feng was much stronger than when he was at Mount Xinjue in Hongmeng. Moreover, he had a complete mountain core world clone. Lin Feng's current defense was quite strong. Pung, pung, boom. The annihilation Hongmeng law of annihilation should have been enough to shatter the small world clone, but it did not. This was because the essence of the small world clone was the annihilation Hongmeng law of annihilation. The two were the same kind of existence. I have comprehended all 1888 Hongmeng law of annihilation. Combining them into one is the great annihilation. Eudace naturally did not know Lin Feng's true goal. Comprehending the Hongmeng law of annihilation, Lin Feng had already reached the nascent source realm before he had even reached the nascent source realm. Moreover, he had comprehended more than 10 of them. Xiantian full circle, Lin Feng had a small world clone. He did not need to comprehend the Xiantian full circle to be able to use the power of the Xiantian full circle through the dark red engravings. In 33 eras, Lin Feng had comprehended all 1888 Hongmeng law of annihilation. The comprehension of annihilation and great annihilation were different. Lin Feng's comprehension of the level 7 Hongmeng law of annihilation had reached greater mastery. However, that was through the golden engravings and the connections between several Hongmeng law of annihilation. It was an understanding that had been mechanically copied. He could use the large world clone to forcibly use great annihilation, but he could not use it directly. Now, Lin Feng had truly reached greater mastery in great annihilation. Even if he did not use the large world clone, he could still use it normally. However, greater mastery was still very far from great perfection. This was especially true for Lin Feng, who had a large world clone. With his great calamity insights at the large success stage, Lin Feng's great world incarnation could barely reach the strength of a Xiantian great perfection. But with his great calamity insights at the large success stage, Lin Feng could erupt with the strength of a Xiantian great perfection through his great world incarnation. The Xiantian full circle of Hongmeng law of level 7 was equivalent to the full circle of Hongmeng law of level 8. It was enough to kill an insectoid commander. This was Lin Feng's initial goal for reaching the primal origin realm. As a result, he did everything he could to achieve it. This was why he had entered the annihilation primordial realm. However, it was not as dangerous as he had imagined. Lin Feng only dared to enter if he was confident. With a total of 1,888 small world clones protecting him, and with the same origin as the Hongmeng law of annihilation, Lin Feng had a 100% chance of surviving. Even if the Hongmeng law of annihilation shattered the small world clone, Lin Feng would have enough time to leave. Moreover, it was proven that the Hongmeng law of annihilation would not shatter the small world clone. Wait a moment. It shouldn't just not shatter. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Since the Hongmeng law of annihilation will not shatter the small world clone, it means that even if there are different Hongmeng laws of annihilation, they share the same essence of Hongmeng. If the two are the same Hongmeng law of annihilation, then what will happen? Lin Feng pondered to himself as he nodded from time to time. He was very familiar with the fluctuations of the primordial chaos laws of destruction in the entire primordial chaos realm. The only difference was that the fluctuations of the primordial chaos laws of destruction in the primordial chaos realm were tangible and had clear energy changes. The primordial chaos laws of destruction in the primordial chaos realm incarnation of the primordial chaos realm came from the inside through the dark red engravings. Whoosh! Lin Feng put away the small world clone. He had already made up his mind. He seemed to hover in the annihilation primordial realm without any protection. It seemed extremely dangerous. Endless energy from the Hongmeng law of annihilation surged over like a storm. attempting to devour Lin Feng. He had nowhere to run. Left, 575 small world clones. Right, 912 small world clones. Above, 1027 small world clones. Below, 18 small world clones. Numerous primordial obliteration laws of primordial obliteration that possessed extremely formidable offensive strength shot over, and numerous minor world incarnations instantly appeared. Lin Feng commanded them calmly and didn't panic in the slightest. He focused his mind and calmed his breathing, and he clearly placed every single primordial obliteration law of primordial obliteration into every single minor world incarnation that he had set. A miraculous scene appeared in an instant. Mobile version update website. Chapter 3080. The ferocious and brutal primordial laws of annihilation fell into the small world incarnation, instantly turning into a dragon that circled around the dark red runes above. It was as if flames had ignited the small world incarnation, perfectly fusing into it. Sizzle, sizzle. The originally calm, small world incarnation's energy increased steadily. The dark red engravings became brighter and brighter. The energy of the Hongmeng nomological laws decreased, and the small world incarnation became stronger. The originally dry, small world incarnation instantly became much more saturated. It was not a coincidence. Left, right, top, bottom. The small world incarnation was the same in every direction. It was like a magnet that firmly absorbed the Hongmeng nomological laws of destruction in the dark red engravings and fused the energy for its own use. It can indeed fuse. Lin Feng smiled. The essence of the small world incarnation was the Hongmeng nomological laws of destruction. The mountain core was a connate life form born with the Hongmeng Sea. The mountain core world incarnation was the same. The dark red engravings contained the ultimate mystery of the Hongmeng nomological laws of destruction. The power of a perfected connate great perfection. In terms of level, it was stronger than the Hongmeng nomological laws of destruction here. It was not about the strength of the energy, but it was similar to the life level of a cultivator. Therefore, even though the small world incarnation's energy was weaker than the Hongmeng nomological laws of destruction, it would not be destroyed. When the two were in the same form and contained the same type of primordial chaos energy, they would naturally fuse together. Just like seizing another's body, the one who won wouldn't be the primordial chaos laws that had no will and were only in energy form. It must be the small world incarnation with a stronger life level. Endless energy replenishment. My small world incarnation can be strengthened by a lot. Lin Feng was not the mountain core, nor was he the master of the universe with endless energy. He could not actively help the small world incarnation absorb and gather energy. It could only rely on it to absorb energy. It was very slow. If it did not absorb enough, its power in battle would be greatly reduced. Now that it had absorbed the Hongmeng nomological laws of destruction, not only did it have enough energy, but it was also perfectly compatible. When Lin Feng used the Hongmeng nomological laws of destruction, he only needed to activate them to unleash the power of a perfected connate great perfection. Reducing energy consumption in battle was secondary. Controlling the enemy's movements and controlling the enemy's attacks were two different things. Lin Feng could summon dozens of small world incarnations at the same time, which was much more powerful than his current limit of controlling 4 or 5 small world incarnations. So this is how the different Hongmeng laws of annihilation are connected. The process of evolution is actually a change in form. Different destruction will not cause different changes. So the connection of the golden carvings above the great world incarnation is like this. Understand. Witnessing the connection and changes of Hongmeng's law of destruction with his own eyes, Lin Feng's understanding of the great destruction deepened, especially since he possessed the power of a great world realm. The ultimate mystery of the great destruction was perfectly explained through the golden engravings. At this moment, in the annihilation primordial realm, all kinds of annihilation evolved. It was as if there was a teacher performing his saber art in front of him, enlightening Lin Feng. Once understood, all would be clear. The connection between the Hongmeng laws of annihilation itself did not have many nodes and techniques. If each of the 1888 types of annihilation had a special connection with the others, the connection would be too huge. The Great Destruction was a complete seventh-order Hongmeng law. From the point to the surface, Lin Feng looked at it all and had a clear understanding of the overall structure of the Great Destruction. All that was left was to comprehend the details. It was like building blocks to form a complete form of primordial energy. The condensation of the explosion, accumulation, and continuous accumulation. From the outside to the inside, the energy is increased and strengthened again and again. When it accumulates to the extreme, the power is detonated through the central pole. This is the Great Destruction. No wonder the power is so strong. Lin Feng was enlightened. He suddenly laughed and couldn't help but shake his head. I thought the Great Destruction was like the mountain core detonating itself, destroying jade and common stone, but that's not the case. Now that he had a thorough understanding of the Great Destruction Hongmeng law, Lin Feng completely understood the mystery. The mountain core detonated itself because it did not understand the Great Destruction Hongmeng law. In fact, it did not even understand the Hongmeng law of annihilation. That was its talent, the gift of the Hongmeng Sea. It did not have any understanding. If it could understand, the mountain core would not need to seize Lin Feng's body. It used the annihilation and Great Destruction through the world incarnation. Annihilation was annihilation, and Great Destruction was Great Destruction. It was simple and clear. The Great Destruction was indeed a condensation of power and an explosion. However, the mountain core would not change and could not change because it had to use the world incarnation to perform the Great Destruction. The world incarnation was connected to the mountain core. The explosion was equivalent to self-destruction. I can perform the Great Destruction without using the world incarnation, and it has the power of a peak seventh order. I can also perform it through the world incarnation, and it has the power of a peak seventh order innate. Lin Feng furrowed his brows slightly. Performing it through the world incarnation was equivalent to detonating the world incarnation. Although the power was not great and would not destroy the world incarnation, the accumulation of energy and the strength of the world incarnation itself, if the power was too great, he was afraid that the world incarnation would be destroyed once. It was best not to use it if possible. If I fully comprehend it, I can at least use it as my strongest trump card. Even if I encounter an ultimate universe dominator like the army god, I will still have the power to strike. And even if I don't self-destruct, with the Great Destruction as the source, I can drive the annihilation small world incarnations to perform the power. It's much stronger than a simple destruction attack. I can accumulate the energy of the Hongmeng law and trigger an explosion. Self-destruction could not be used as a common method. However, the accumulation ability of the Great Destruction could, especially since Lin Feng had 1,888 small world incarnations. Now that they were replenishing energy one by one, the accumulated power of the explosion was quite impressive. Soon, I will fully comprehend the Great Destruction. Lin Feng smiled with satisfaction. That instant of sudden comprehension caused the grand obliteration to reveal no more secrets before him. Moreover, he had 1,888 types of comprehension of the primordial laws of obliteration. So it was like a ladder had been set up. The rest was much simpler. I will be able to come out of seclusion and leave the realm of beginner origin in less than an era. Wait for me, everyone. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly, and his fighting spirit radiated. After leaving for 33 eras, he did not know how the situation outside was. Had the Bug Clan commander appeared? Had the cooperation between the army and the Yao Tuor race gone smoothly? Had the Taichu insect disaster been contained? There were too many questions in his heart. However, it was easy to know the problem, but difficult to solve. He had to have enough power. Bug Clan commander, the next time we meet, it will be the time of your death. Lin Feng was full of confidence. He continued to strengthen and absorb the small world incarnations while comprehending the great destruction Hongmeng law through the unique environment of the annihilation primal domain. Mobile version update website. M. Chapter 3081. It's over, Eudace muttered to himself. Standing outside the annihilation primordial boundary, he stared blankly. Lin Feng's figure was still lingering in his mind, but he had already lost all hope. Originally, Eudace was still hoping that Lin Feng had a defensive treasure that could block the Hongmeng law attack and walk out of the primordial boundary. But now too much time had passed. There was still hope for him to come out as soon as he entered, but the longer he stayed, the slimmer his chances of coming out. After all, this was the primordial boundary. The primordial boundary contained an endless amount of Hongmeng law. It was the most majestic and powerful place in the entire Hongmeng Sea. Senior Lin Feng. Eudace had thousands of words to say, but they all turned into a long sigh. In his opinion, Senior Lin Feng would definitely become a world lord in the future, becoming the symbol and pride of the Taichu. It was not worth it for him to die in the elementary origin realm. Go back and ask teacher for help. See if he can revive Lin Feng. Eudace was not confident. After all, Lin Feng was too powerful, possibly even stronger than his teacher. Although a universe lord could reverse time and space to revive cultivators below the level of great existences, it was not a 100% success rate. The stronger the revived cultivator, the stronger the backlash. Reviving Lin Feng, perhaps only a world lord would be able to withstand this shocking backlash. No matter what, he had to try. I can't let Senior Lin Feng die. Eudace was full of respect for Lin Feng. Just as he was about to leave, Eudace's gaze remained fixed on the annihilation primordial boundary, hoping for a miracle to happen at the last moment. However, the annihilation primordial boundary remained the same. It was abnormally violent, and no one appeared. The annihilation Hongmeng law was an attack-type law. Entering the primordial boundary was even more dangerous than some 7th-order Hongmeng laws. Eudace frowned slightly. Is it just my imagination? The explosion at the edge of the annihilation primordial boundary seems to be weaker than before. I understand. Eudace's heart ached. Maybe Senior Lin Feng has already died, and the annihilation primordial boundary is calming down. Something's wrong. If Senior Lin Feng had died, the power of the explosion shouldn't have weakened, but returned to normal. Could it be that Senior Lin Feng isn't dead yet? Whoosh! Eudace stared at the changes in the annihilation primordial realm and held his breath. There was indeed a change. The energy is weakening. My senses are also weakening. During these 33 eras, Eudace had also comprehended the laws of Hongmeng to perfection, so his comprehension was naturally clear. Something must have happened in the chaos realm. Senior Lin Feng might still be alive. Thinking of this, Eudace's face lit up with joy. Although it was just a guess, it was better to have some hope than none. Eudace clenched his fists and stared unblinkingly at the Hongmeng law of destruction, sensing every change in energy. The more he sensed, the more certain Eudace became. His idol, Senior Lin Feng, really wasn't dead. In Annihilation Primordial Realm, Lin Feng had gained a lot. The Annihilation Hongmeng law of destruction's attacks turned into pure energy that was absorbed by the small world incarnation. In just one era, Lin Feng had absorbed the energy of 1,888 small world incarnations. It was too easy. There was no need to expend much effort to absorb it, nor did he need a large amount of Hongmeng energy. He only needed to connect the Annihilation Hongmeng law of destruction with the corresponding small world incarnation, and he could absorb it naturally. It was like placing containers in the chaos realm and filling them up. However, I don't need that much. Lin Feng couldn't control so many at the same time in battle. Even if he only used the Annihilation Hongmeng law of destruction, he could only use a few dozen at the same time. Any more, and he wouldn't be able to control it. The control of the mountain core wasn't because of how strong the mountain core was, but because the 1,888 small world incarnations were a part of the body. Lin Feng could do it too, when he broke through to become a powerful being, when his control was stronger. But now is not the time. Great devastation. With a thought, Lin Feng used the law of Hongmeng with a flick of his wrist. The surroundings of the large world incarnation immediately exploded violently. Whether it was the energy or the presence, it completely overwhelmed the Hongmeng law of destruction and the chaos realm energy. A casual use of the law of destruction was already so powerful, and he could control it as he wished. It was enough to show that Lin Feng had benefited greatly from his time at initial origin. Great perfection of Hongmeng law of destruction. If Lin Feng used the law of destruction through the large world incarnation, it would reach the level of Xiantian great perfection, comparable to the laws of Hongmeng. The eruption of power is unimaginable. The current large world incarnation was completely different from when he had reached initial origin. After reaching great perfection of great devastation, Lin Feng could control the large world incarnation to absorb the energy of the Hongmeng law of destruction. The two of them were originally on the same level as each other. He only needed to control the golden inscriptions of the large world incarnation to correspond to a small portion of the Hongmeng law of destruction, and he could easily absorb it. Now, not only was the 1,888 small world incarnations full, but so was the large world incarnation. Everything's ready. Lin Feng had already sharpened his blade. The mountain core world incarnation could basically be described as having perfect control over it. Its current strength was completely different from when he fought against the insectoid commander. It was far too powerful. It's time to settle the debt from that day. Lin Feng was extremely unwilling to accept the fact that the insectoid commander had slipped away right under his nose last time. This time, he was absolutely confident that as long as he could find the insectoid commander, he would definitely be able to kill the insectoid commander. He would be able to kill the insectoid commander as soon as possible. The energy is weakening. It's fluctuating. There's definitely something wrong. Senior Lin Feng must be resisting. Hold on. Yu Dang secretly cheered on Lin Feng. He was extremely worried. Although he could not enter the Annihilation primordial world, he was extremely certain that Senior Lin Feng was still alive. According to his experience over several hundred eras, the current situation in the Annihilation primordial world was very unusual. Just as he was feeling apprehensive, a sudden change occurred. The energy of the Hongmeng law of destruction became even more powerful, erupting like a volcano. It was as if the balance of the primordial world had been completely destroyed. Pung, 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 rumble. A violent explosion resounded as the terrifying airflow forced Yu Dang back. Even the defense of the ruler armor could not withstand it. The airflow landed on Yu Dang's chest, causing him to groan and stumble back. However, Yu Dang did not show any signs of fear. Instead, his eyes widened and his breathing became more rapid. An aura contained within the airflow of the explosion slowly emerged. Boundless airflow lingered as the violent explosion enshrouded the area. A familiar figure stepped out of the Annihilation primordial world. His aura was calm and composed. Although he was not tall, his body was unimaginably powerful. His mere Yuan Venerate aura was enough to resist the Annihilation Hongmeng law of destruction that could kill a universe ruler. Golden light covered his body as an invisible barrier protected him. There was a faint smile on his face. Senior Lin Feng, Yu Dang shouted in surprise. Chapter 3082. Outside Milieu Toa, Sky Swamp Alliance, Geo Corporation, Taichu Inquisition, and Daoyan Palace were encircling and suppressing the enemy. At first, they were killing the bug race, but now, they were in a terrible fix. Damn it, where did these insectoids crawl out from? We've already shrunk the encirclement. How did they suddenly appear outside? We're in big trouble. There's news that a time-devouring bug emperor appeared in Universe 15. Although we've already killed it, it's going to be a headache. Now that the first one has appeared, there'll definitely be a second and a third. There was no longer any confidence or joy. The universe masters of the four superpowers frowned, their expressions solemn. There was a huge change in the plan. The bug race, which had been passively taking a beating, suddenly appeared outside the encirclement. This was beyond their expectations. Then, bad news came one after another. Although they'd killed countless time devouring bug emperors and universe-splitting bug kings, and every battle had been successful, one careless mistake was enough to lead to a bitter end. There was no end to the bug race. After all, this was Hongming Ocean. No matter how much they shrunk the encirclement, it was impossible to take care of all the bugs. There would always be bugs that slipped through the net. The scary thing about the bug race was that as long as you missed out on one, it could reproduce endlessly. The more resources there were, the more bug race there would be. The Taichu Origin Chaotic Universe had 18 sub-universes, and the one closest to Miluota was the 15th sub-universe. The huge universe energy was especially attractive to the bug race, and it was much easier to absorb the energy in the sub-universe than in Hongming. To the bug race, it was the best delicacy. The faster they absorbed, the faster they would reproduce, and the more bug race there would be. This was a terrifying cycle. Once the bug race took root in the 15th sub-universe and used it as a base, they would gradually devour everything in Taichu territory. No matter how many cultivators there were, it would be difficult to take care of both the head and tail. Finally, the Taichu Origin Chaotic Universe would be destroyed. What should we do? Protect the 15th sub-universe at all costs. Ask for the opinion of the first marshal. He's been fighting with the bug race. Maybe he'll have some ideas. The universe masters of the 4 superpowers were at their wits' end. Previously, they'd underestimated the bug race and the army. Now, they knew how terrifying the attack of the bug race was and how much pressure the army was under. They regretted it. At the entrance, Miluo Tuo entrance. Lord, as you expected, the bug race has started to spread. Black Hongming looked at the first marshal, who was frowning. He said, "The 4 superpowers are asking you if there's any way to stop them." Stop them? The first marshal Scott stopped them. How? Stop them? In the Miluo Tuo realm, there was a way. Now that we've entered the absolute beginning realm, the insectoids are everywhere. Unless I can sense the aura of the insectoids and kill them all. But is that possible? In Miluo Tuo territory, we have the monster Tuo clan to help us. But absolute beginning is so big. Who can help us? The atmosphere. Star was Marshall. Tuo phone was A. Were. This was undeniably bad news, and it came earlier than expected. For the bug race to be able to counterattack so quickly, at least 2 Yin worms escaped from the first pathway, maybe even 3. The first marshal's expression was cold. The Yin worms were the ultimate form of the bug race. They could produce universe-devouring emperor and universe-splitting emperor. The more Yin worms there were, the stronger the main force of the bug race. Then what should we do? Are we just going to let the bug race destroy Ta? The black python Marshal Hongming felt his heart palpitate and his head hurt. The outbreak of the insect calamity had completely exceeded the scope of his abilities. The first marshal gritted his teeth. Tell them to continue searching for the traces of the insectoids outside the encirclement. It's impossible for the insectoids to appear out of nowhere. They must have a place to hide. Also, we must protect the 15th sub-universe. We can't lose it. If the 15th sub-universe is taken over by the bug race, it's over. Black Python Hongming replied solemnly, "Yes, sir." After saying that, he turned on his communicator and relayed the first marshal's words to Ling Lan. Bastard. The first marshal clenched his fists and wrapped his scaly tail around his waist. He gritted his teeth. He knew that this was a temporary solution. Just like what he said at the start, there was no other solution now. Once the bug race spread, the consequences would be unimaginable. Pangyu. The first marshal took a deep breath and contacted the second marshal. Do you have any news about the commander of the bug race? Really? This bastard is really good at hiding. The first marshal's tail landed heavily on the ground. With a loud boom, the ground cracked and dust flew everywhere. Suddenly, the first marshal's eyes lit up. He turned his head abruptly and saw a silhouette flying towards him from the distance. Garuda! Whoosh! In an instant, Sherwanli appeared in front of the first marshal. A familiar figure jumped down with a smile on his face. "I'm back, Marshal." The person who came was Lin Feng. "Good, it's good that you're back." The first marshal forced a smile. Did you gain anything in the elementary source realm? Yes, Lin Feng replied with a smile. Their eyes met. From Lin Feng's eyes, the first marshal could see that his confidence and strength had increased. Usually, when a person entered the elementary source realm, they would comprehend the Hongmeng laws. Lin Feng must have had a breakthrough and cultivated some Hongmeng laws to perfection. His strength had increased, but it didn't have much effect on the bug race. The first marshal knew that even if Lin Feng's strength increased to the same level as his, it would just be one more battle force. However, they were facing a bug race. There were endless bugs. An individual's strength was really insignificant. Marshal, you seem to be very troubled. Lin Feng looked at the first marshal. The first marshal sighed. There's bad news from the four great powers. The encirclement of the bugs has failed. A universe-devouring bug emperor has even appeared in the 15th universe. That's troublesome. Lin Feng knew what this meant. The first marshal nodded. There are already universe rulers guarding the 15th universe. They're also searching for the location of the bugs. They should be able to last for a while. However, if we can't find the commander of the bugs, the bug race will become more and more dangerous. Are there no clues about the Yao Tuo race? Lin Feng asked. The first marshal shook his head. They're hidden very well. The commander of the bugs should know that the Yao Tuo race is working with us. He's hiding far away from Mi Air Ice River. Miluo Tuo territory is huge. It won't be easy to find him. He's injured. He needs energy to rebuild the black plate of the initial Great Yen insect. Unless he doesn't show himself, there must be a flaw. Lin Feng's expression was serious. I'll dig him out even if I have to dig him out. Chapter 3083. Finding the insectoid commander was very important. This was because the insectoids were like a pyramid. There was only one commander at the top. Killing the insectoid commander might not end the insectoid plague, but it would definitely cause great damage to the insectoids and throw them into disarray. The first marshal knew this, Lin Feng knew this, and the insectoid commander obviously knew this as well. Thus, he hid himself well and did not show himself at all. Even the local snake Yao Tuo could not find any trace of the insectoid commander in the Miluo glacier that ran through the entire Miluo Tuo realm. They did not even have a single clue. Lin Feng could sense the insectoid commander, but he could only sense it when it was close. With how large Miluo Tuo realm was, this close distance was practically negligible. Thus, Lin Feng had not searched Miluo Tuo realm apart from going to the Miluo wilderness to search. This was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Searching aimlessly is too inefficient. I still need to find Yao Tuo Overlord. As a local snake, after dozens of eras, Lin Feng did not believe that Yao Tuo Overlord had no clue at all. The insectoid commander was hidden so well that he did not leave any traces behind. If he wanted to find a breakthrough, he had to ask Yao Tuo Overlord. After saying goodbye to the first marshal, Lin Feng declined the second marshal's invitation. Moving alone was freer and easier. With Shi Wan Li, Lin Feng quickly returned to the Miluo wilderness and went deep into the Miluo glacier. Go back, human. I don't have any clues here. Yao Tuo Overlord leaned against the golden throne and said lazily, If there are traces of the insectoid commander, I will notify you. I'm not here for clues. Lin Feng naturally knew the current situation. They were allies. If Yao Tuo Overlord had any clues about the insectoid commander, he would have notified the first marshal long ago. He would not have waited for him. Oh, Yao Tuo Overlord's white ice diamond imprint flashed with extreme coldness. Then why are you here? Lin Feng said, I want a map of Miluo Tuo realm, the area covered by the Yao Tuo race and the Miluo glacier. The more detailed, the better. All right. Yao Tuo Overlord didn't say anything else. The giant head looked over. Its single golden eye shined brightly. That was an enormous amount of soul force. Pung! A powerful consciousness energy poured into his mind, and in an instant, memory-like data was reflected, and the map of the entire Miluo Tuo realm appeared clearly. The Miluo glacier was like a spine, supporting the entire Miluo Tuo realm. There were many black, red, and white markings above. Lin Feng didn't need to ask to know. Lord Yao Tuo passed on everything he knew to Nye Tian. Thank you, Lord. Lin Feng expressed his gratitude. Hurry up and find the insectoid commander. The Yao Tuo overlord said indifferently. The longer this drags on, the more advantageous it will be for him. You Taichu better not be a burden to us, Yao Ta. Once the insectoids get past this, it'll be even more difficult to capture and kill them later. Understood. Wait for my good news. Lin Feng left satisfied. Lord Yao Tuo's golden eyes rolled up. His expression was one of despair. Humans are cunning, Lord Yao Tuo muttered. If he hadn't been persuaded by this human early on, he wouldn't have wanted to cooperate. Now that the insectoids had the complete upper hand, the Taichu was doomed no matter how he looked at it. Was there a way to turn the tables? Lord Yao Tuo didn't think so. But whether he thought so or not, the Yao Tuo clan had no way out now. They could only stand on the Taichu's side. After all, they were already at odds with the insectoids. They couldn't go back to the insectoid side. Moreover, if the insectoids were so easy to deal with, he would have surrendered long ago. Rather than saying that he was in the same boat as the Taichu, it was more of a forced choice. How troublesome. Lord Yao Tuo had a headache. After leaving the Tuo Luo Imperial Palace, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on Shi Li's back, letting him gallop as he searched aimlessly. Shi Li was trying his luck, while Lin Feng was carefully analyzing the complete map of the Miluo Tuo realm. This could be said to be the only clue at the moment. Indeed, there was no trace of the insectoid commander. If he really wanted to find him, he would have to clear out all the super blackboards with energy ripples. In the entire Miluo Tuo realm, the number of these super blackboards was too terrifying. Even if all the universe masters gathered, it would take at least 100 eras. If we're lucky, we might find the insectoid commander hidden among them. If we're unlucky, we'll waste 100 eras, and the outside of the Taichu would have fallen long ago. Besides, the insectoid commander might not be among them. Even if we find him, we might not be able to kill him. It's a waste of time and effort. It's too risky. If we fail, the consequences will be severe. Lin Feng immediately rejected this idea. Ordinary universe masters would only be trampled by the insectoid commander if they found him. Only he, the first marshal, the second marshal, and a few others could contend against him. This method of finding a needle in a haystack wasn't advisable. Although the map of the Yao Tuo clan had shrunk the area of the ocean, it was still huge. More importantly, there weren't many chances left now. If I were the insectoid commander, what would I do? Lin Feng fell in a deep thought. He put himself in the position of the insectoid commander and placed himself in his shoes. Stall for time. The deeper you hide yourself, the better. Let the insectoids within the Taichu realm wreak havoc and make it difficult for the Taichu realm to take care of both the front and the rear. By then, they won't have any extra power to look after Miluo Tuo realm. We all thought that the insectoid commander would rebuild the initial big yin insect blackboard, but that might not be the case. Lin Feng thought to himself. Without the initial big yin insect blackboard, the insectoid commander won't be able to reproduce or accumulate power. However, both aren't necessary for him now. On the contrary, rebuilding the initial big yin insect blackboard will definitely cause some changes. It will definitely absorb the energy of Hongmeng, and it will be easily discovered by the Yao Tuo clan. In Miluo Tuo realm, the Yao Tuo clan is everywhere, not just in the Mi-Air Ice River region. Lin Feng's thoughts became clearer. Previously, he had taken for granted that the insectoid commander would rebuild the initial big yin insect blackboard, because this was something that every insectoid had to do. It was like a cultivator without an internal universe. Their strength would be less than 10%. However, that was the insectoids. The insectoids' blackboard was different from the Hongmeng Sea cultivator's internal universe. Their functions were different, and their effects were also different. The insectoid's own strength didn't rely on the blackboard. Moreover, rebuilding the initial big yin insect blackboard will consume a lot of energy and energy. Once it settles down, moving it will be equivalent to rebuilding after destruction. The loss will be huge. Lin Feng stood up from Shi Li's back and looked into the distance. The insectoid commander's target is the Taichu. The most suitable location for the initial Big Yin insect blackboard is the Taichu origin chaotic universe. Secondly, it's the child universe. He's waiting for an opportunity to leave Milieu to a realm and wait for the best opportunity. Mobile version website. Chapter 3084. With an accurate inference, Lin Feng would have more evidence to determine the location of the insect clan commander. Indeed, without any energy fluctuations, it was difficult to find the position of the insect clan commander. However, there were two sides to everything. The insect clan commander will definitely hide in the most hidden place of the Milieu Tor realm. First of all, eliminate the range of the Milieu wilderness and the Milieu ice river. Whether it was the Milieu wilderness or the Milieu ice river, they were the areas where the Yaodawa clan had the deepest senses. Even if the insect clan commander did not reveal any energy, he might be discovered by the Yaodawa clan. These two places were hidden forbidden places. As long as the insect clan commander was not stupid, he would not walk into a trap. Secondly, the area near the entrance of the Milieu Tor realm must be the area where the army's main force is searching. If I were the insect clan commander, I would not hide there. It is more likely that I would hide in the corner of the Milieu Tor realm. Finally, in any area with energy fluctuations, near the super blackboard, the possibility of the insect clan commander hiding is not high. Afraid of being hit by mistake. The insect clan commander was intelligent and very intelligent. He was good at planning. He knew that the Yaodawa clan had joined forces with the Taichu. He also knew that the Yaodawa clan could determine the position of the insect clan through the energy fluctuations of the super blackboard. The insect clan commander's current actions were all to better hide. Since he did not plan to rebuild the original Big Yin insect blackboard, he would definitely stay away from the area with energy fluctuations, because such an area would be easily discovered. It was possible to find a needle in a haystack. He did not do so because the risk was too great. He was afraid that if he could not find the insect clan commander, all his efforts would be in vain. However, the insect clan commander was also afraid that if he was found, he would be unlucky. He would definitely find a safer way. Therefore, he could use the elimination method, especially where the super blackboard was. Looking at the Milieu Tor realm, it could be said to be densely packed, occupying more than 90% of the Milieu Tor realm. Inferring from this, the range was reduced by a lot. Arrange according to the size of the open area. Second brother, go there first. Lin Feng directly transmitted the consciousness message to Shirwan Li's mind. The latter understood and spread his wings to fly. There were still many empty areas. If one were to enter any open area, it would take a lot of effort to dig 3 feet into the ground to search. However, Lin Feng was different. After absorbing the Big Yin insect's blackboard, Lin Feng could sense the insectoid commander. As long as the insectoid commander was hiding in an open area, they would definitely be able to find him. I hope I can make it in time. Lin Feng continued to move alone, just like before. The only difference was that there was a world of difference between his current strength and the previous one. Lin Feng was confident in his deduction. The only uncertainty was how long it would take to find the insectoid commander. During this time, what would the Taichu become? The addition of Lin Feng did not cause any changes to the situation. After a period of decline, the insect plague ushered in a big outbreak. In particular, the frequent appearance of the insect race in Universe 15 caused the experts of the 4 superpowers to be exhausted. It was too difficult to find the Zerg stronghold and the location of the super blackboard. On one hand, there were too few universe dominators. On the other hand, the Taichu was too big. Even if it was just around Universe 15, there were endless spaces, endless planes, and countless secret realms of various sizes. It was too difficult to search for the super blackboard in such a huge area. Moreover, the insect race was not afraid of Sunmi at all, unless they could find it at lightning speed and destroy the super blackboard. Otherwise, giving the insect race time was equivalent to giving them the opportunity to reproduce again and again. The Taichu had endless energy. We can't hold it back anymore. The insect race's appearance point is too loose. No matter what, do your best to defend Universe 15. Don't worry about the insect race in other places. Don't worry about it. Defend Universe 15, Universe 16, and Universe 17. The insect race doesn't have to waste time with us in Universe 15. If we don't block their range of movement, we will only fall into their trap. This won't work, that won't work, what should we do? The four superpowers were almost driven crazy by the insect race. No matter what they did, it seemed wrong. At first, they could still suppress the insect race. Now, the insect race's power was getting bigger and bigger. They changed places after a shot. The four superpowers that had not suffered any losses all this time were losing powerful people one after another. Regret. They regretted not doing their best to help the army defend Miliuo Tua territory. Now, they were suffering the consequences of their own actions. Compared to the Taichu, the army's encirclement attack in Miliuo Tua territory was gradually getting better. The first marshal, who had calmed down, turned the unfavorable situation around and used the second marshal as a sharp spear to uproot the insect race's power bit by bit. Although they had not found the insect race commander until now, at least they were walking in the right direction. They would do their best and leave the rest to fate. The first marshal did not have any good ideas. They could only rely on luck to find the insect race commander or wait for the Yao Tuor race to discover something. Or perhaps Lin Feng could create a miracle. It would be great if we could really find it. The first marshal smiled. He was the #1 commander in the army, yet he could only rely on a little Yuan venerate. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Time passed, one epoch after another. Lin Feng made a lot of X's on the map. The empty area was getting smaller and smaller, and it seemed like hope was getting slimmer and slimmer. However, Lin Feng did not think so. The insect race commander must be hiding in an empty area where the Yao Tuor race did not exist. Lin Feng had absolute confidence in his deduction. Given the intelligence of the insect race commander, choosing this kind of covert method was the most appropriate. Just because he could not find it now did not mean that he could not find it in the future. As the empty area decreased, it meant that the hiding area of the insect race commander would shrink. Every time it shrank, the chances of finding the insect race commander would increase. The 9th era of the search. Lin Feng had already arrived at the fiery basin near the border of the map. This place was not as cold as the other regions of Miliuo Tua territory. On the contrary, it was very hot, as if he was inside a star. It was far away from the Miliuo Ice River and had a unique geographical environment. Not only did the Yao Tuor race feel uncomfortable and disgusted by the fiery basin, but cultivators also rarely set foot here. After all, this place was very far from the entrance of Miliuo Tua territory. Bang! Bang! Lin Feng's heartbeat sped up, and his eyes gradually lit up. As Shi Wanli flew completely into this fiery basin, the perception of the entire space changed completely. It was an unusually familiar heartbeat, as if a huge and terrifying power was spying on him. It had already sensed him. "I've finally found you, insect race commander." Rushing to the place where he sensed the deepest, Lin Feng leaped up and dove down at a high speed. His fighting spirit shrouded him, and his eyes shone brightly.